Chapter 1104. Good, good, good. Fatso nodded, and opened the teleportation gate in joy. But as soon as he stepped into the teleportation gate, he retracted his foot. The smile on his face disappeared and was replaced by a hint of disappointment. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong and the other man looked at him suspiciously. It's better not to go. Fatso shook his head. Why? The two of them were puzzled. It wasn't easy for him to get lucky in love, but he didn't go. This wasn't Fatso's style. After the incident with Chu Xian, Fat Lord has realized that Fat Lord is not suitable to fall in love at the moment. Fatso sighed. Yan Wei asked, "What do you mean?" It means that boss's identity will be exposed sooner or later. At that time, the two of us will naturally become the public enemy of the Forgotten Continent along with boss. If something really happens between Li Yan and me now, when boss's identity is exposed, we will only be in more pain. Fatso sighed deeply and said. Yan Wei was stunned and nodded. That's true. Fatso said, so it's better not to talk about feelings now, lest she gets into trouble because of our true identity. Yan Wei shook his head and laughed. I didn't realize that you were looking so far ahead. Indeed. If Fatso and Li Yan really became a couple now, then when their identities were exposed, Li Yan would definitely be implicated. Even if she wasn't implicated, Li Yan would still be in a dilemma. Fatso turned to look at Qin Feiyong and laughed. Boss, send us to the castle. Right now, cultivation is more important. Let's put aside our personal affairs. All right. Qin Feiyong nodded, and with a wave of his arm, the two of them disappeared. Then, he sat in front of the coffee table, muttering to himself. To be honest, he was really surprised that Fatso could have such awareness. But from another point of view, he was not even as good as Fatso. Because Fatso had already seen the future and made a choice. And he was still living in a dream. She was always entangled with Wang Yuer and young Master Hao. If this continued, just as Fatty had said, everyone would fall into a painful situation in the end. Looks like I have to settle this as soon as possible. Qin Feiyong mumbled. Wang. Suddenly, the image crystal recalled. Qin Feiyong took out an image crystal, and the phantom of the Phantom Serpent Emperor appeared. He smiled mischievously and said, I have a piece of bad news and a piece of good news. Which one do you want to hear first? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said, Tell me the bad news first. The Phantom Serpent Emperor said, After seeing your performance during the succession ceremony, the Chief Pagoda Master thinks that you are too smart. He is afraid that you will threaten young Master Hao's position and wants to eliminate you. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, What's the good news? The Phantom Snake Emperor said, The good news is that Gong Sun Bei is speaking up for you. The Chief Pagoda Master has temporarily withdrawn his killing intent towards you. Why is Gong Sun Bei helping me? Qin Feiyong frowned. I don't know. But just now the Chief Pagoda Master asked Gong Sun Bei a strange question. The Phantom Serpent Emperor said. What question? Qin Feiyong asked. He asked Gong Sun Bei if he hated him all these years. Gong Sun Bei replied that he didn't hate him and said that he was already very satisfied with everything he had now. I feel that there seems to be an unknown grudge between the two of them. The Phantom Serpent Emperor pondered. An unknown grudge. Qin Feiyong also fell into deep thought. The Phantom Serpent Emperor shook his small head and said, You can slowly think about this matter. I will continue to monitor the Chief Pagoda Master. In addition, Gong Sun Bei should be looking for you later. You should be mentally prepared. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. When the phantom of the Phantom Serpent Emperor disappeared, Qin Feiyong put away the image crystal and continued to lower his head and ponder. As expected. Not long after the conversation ended, Gong Sun Bei descended in the sky above Qin Feiyong's courtyard. Sensing Gong Sun Bei's aura, Qin Feiyong let out a long breath, got up and walked out of the attic. He smiled and said, Brother Gong Sun, you are busy with work. How come you have time to come to Soothing Heart Lake? You are Brother Shin's savior. No matter how busy I am, I will definitely take the time to thank you properly. Gong Sun Bei landed in front of Qin Feiyong and said. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Let's talk inside. Okay. Gong Sun Bei nodded. The two of them entered the attic. Qin Feiyong made tea and said with a smile, Brother Gong Sun and Brother Shen have a good relationship. Gong Sun Bei said, In my eyes, He is my biological brother. Qin Feiyong said, I really envy your friendship. Gong Sunbei smiled and said, Aren't you and young master how the same? What is there to envy? Qin Feiyong shook his head and poured a cup of tea. He stepped back in front of Gong Sunbei and said, I don't know if brother Gong Sun has heard of the saying, being with a king is like being with a tiger. Gong Sunbei's heart trembled. He calmly picked up the teacup and tasted it. His eyes lit up and he said in surprise, This should be the tea leaves made by the pavilion master of the trading pavilion, right? Yes. The last time I went to his place, he gave me some. Qin Feiyong said. Gong Sunbei said, Tisk, tsk, tsk. You have a lot of face. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. To tell you the truth, I went to him more than once to ask for these tea leaves, but he was unwilling to give me even one. It really is like the old saying, the older you are, the stingier you are. Gong Sunbei shook his head helplessly. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, If brother Gong Sun likes it, I will give you some later. That's fine. Gong Sunbei immediately beamed. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, Brother Gong Sun, you didn't come here just to thank me, did you? If you have something to say, just say it. Well, Gong Sunbei found it hard to speak. Qin Feiyong said, Actually, I know why you came to me even if you don't say it. Gong Sunbei looked at him in surprise. Qin Feiyong didn't want to talk nonsense. He smiled and said, You can tell master not to worry. I have no interest in the position of chief tower master at all. I was wondering why you would say, being with a king is like being with a tiger. It turns out that you have already seen through it. Gong Sunbei smiled bitterly. This kid's mind was getting scarier and scarier. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, Power is just a passing cloud. What I want is strength. Only with strength can I be qualified to stand above the heavens. Gong Sunbei's heart trembled. He didn't expect this kid in front of him to see through it so thoroughly. Even he felt inferior to this state of mind. Gong Sunbei said, Then if I ask you to assist young master how, what will you say? Qin Feiyong shook his head without hesitation and said, I won't assist anyone. Gong Sunbei wasn't surprised at all. Qin Feiyong continued, However, if he needs it, I will help him. However, I won't help him too much, because everyone needs to learn to be independent. If he needs to ask for help from others every time he encounters a problem, then he will never be able to become a true king. Gong Sunbei shook his head and smiled. To be honest, I really don't like you. Because you are too smart, so smart that it scares people. Brother Gong Sun, aren't you also a smart person? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Why do you say that? Gong Sunbei was startled and asked curiously. In the past, I couldn't figure out why you hinted at me, why you helped me, why you said that we were the same kind of people, and why you yearned for freedom so much. After a period of calm thinking, I finally figured it out. You are the first person to voluntarily withdraw. Qin Feiyong said. Gong Sunbei's pupils shrank. Qin Feiyong smiled. Brother Gong Sun, there is no one else here. Why don't you tell me? Gong Sunbei looked at Qin Feiyong, his eyes flickering. After a long time, Gong Sunbei shook his head and smiled. Kid, you are smart but sometimes you are very stupid. How can you casually discuss such a serious topic? Qin Feiyong said, Don't you feel uncomfortable keeping it in your heart? A guess was always a guess. If the person involved didn't admit it personally, it wouldn't be true. Gong Sunbei smiled faintly. Of course it's uncomfortable. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, I'm a very good listener. You kid. It seems that if I don't say it today, you won't let it go. Gong Sunbei smiled helplessly. Yes, as you said, I am the first person to voluntarily withdraw. Qin Feiyong held a teacup, drinking tea while listening quietly. It turned out that back then, when Gong Sunbei obtained the inheritance in the land of inheritance, some old monsters in the main tower intended to let him inherit the position of the next main tower master. After all, anyone who could obtain the inheritance, no matter which generation's main tower master it was a promising talent. This matter also quickly reached the ears of the main tower master. He definitely wouldn't allow this to happen, so he went to talk to Gong Sunbei. The young Gong Sunbei was also young and frivolous. In addition, he obtained the inheritance, so he was naturally dissatisfied with the attitude of the main tower master. He even had a falling out with the main tower master in private. However, no matter how talented he was only a disciple at that time. How could he fight against the main tower master who controlled the Forgotten Continent? In the end, faced with the main tower master's pressure from all sides, he could only helplessly compromise and voluntarily withdraw. But he knew that even if he voluntarily withdrew, the main tower master might not let him go. Because no one would let a hidden danger live in the world forever. So he swore. In this life, he would always stay by the main tower master's side and serve the main tower master wholeheartedly. It was because of this that he escaped a disaster and lived until today. But it was also because of this that their master-disciple relationship broke. From then on, Gong Sunbei never called the main tower master again. He always called him Lord. This is my past. Gong Sunbei smiled faintly. It's similar to what I thought. Qin Feiyong muttered, asking, "Don't you hate him?" "I used to hate him." Gong Sunbei smiled faintly, then stood up and said, "I said these things not because I really feel uncomfortable, but because I want to tell you a truth. Man can never fight against the heavens." After saying that, Gong Sunbei opened the portal and left. "Man can never fight against the heavens," Qin Feiyong muttered. Gradually, the corners of his mouth rose into a mocking smile. He was not mocking Gong Sunbei. Because Gong Sunbei was right. Man can never fight against the heavens. But was the main tower master the heavens? Chapter 1105. The next day. Qin Feiyong woke up from his cultivation early in the morning. "I wonder how Pei Yi is doing now," he muttered to himself. Not only did he feel sympathy for Pei Yi, but he also felt an inexplicable emotion. Even he himself couldn't explain his emotions. Anyway, he just wanted to help Pei Yi. Bas. He got up and opened the portal, appearing in Pei Yi's alchemy room. However, there was no one there. Where could he be? Qin Feiyong began to ponder. All of a sudden, his eyes lit up and he opened another portal, descending in the sky above a valley. In the valley, the lush green weeds swayed in the wind. The wildflowers were in full bloom, and their fragrance wafted through the air. There was a small lake in the middle of the valley, and the water was so clear that one could see the bottom. At this moment, a young man in white was sitting alone by the lake, staring at the rippling surface of the lake. It was Pei Yi. "I knew you'd be here." Qin Feiyong landed beside Pei Yi and said with a faint smile. This valley was the place where he barbecued meat with the group of children previously. Pei Yi turned to look at him and continued to look at the lake. "Aren't you afraid that I'll flare up at you?" Qin Feiyong said. "If you were such a person, I wouldn't have come." Pei Yi shook his head and smiled. "How did you know I was here?" "It's simple. You often bring those children here for barbecued meat, which means that this is a pure land in your heart," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Pei Yi sighed. "I didn't expect that the person who knows me the best in this world would be you, someone who doesn't know me well." "Yeah. I'm also very confused. We don't know each other well, but why do I want to help you so much?" Qin Feiyong said softly. "Help me?" Pei Yi was stunned. Qin Feiyong took out 3 potential pills, 2 potential pills, and a small creation pill. He smiled and said, "Take them." "What kind of pills are these?" Pei Yi looked at the pills suspiciously. "These are pills that can make you reborn," Qin Feiyong said. He then released his sacred power and helped Pei Yi unlock 6 levels of potential. The surprise came too abruptly, and Pei Yi still felt like he was in a dream even after the 6th level of the door of potential was opened. After an unknown period of time, he came back to his senses. He looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Why are you helping me?" "I don't know either. Maybe it's because your experience has touched the soft spot in my heart. However, no matter what the reason is, I hope that you can properly cherish everything that you have right now." Qin Feiyong smiled and took out 2 more pills. One was the 9 Revolution Dragon Blood pill, and the other was the Small Creation pill. This Small Creation pill is for you to use when you become a 9-star battle saint to open the door to the 7th level of potential. As for this pill, it has a certain probability of allowing you to break through a small realm. You can take it now or wait until you've broken through to the battle saint realm. Qin Feiyong handed the 2 pills to Pei Yi. "Thank you." Pei Yi grabbed the 2 pills. As for the origin of these pills, He had no intention to ask about them. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to thank me. I just hope that you can show mercy to me when we become enemies in the future." Enemies? Pei Yi was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at the lake and wondered if there would really be such a day. "Ancestor Mu, how dare you come to the divine python tribe?" All of a sudden, an angry roar was heard. A red-haired old man flew through the air and landed opposite Qin Feiyong and Pei Yi. His old face was full of anger. It was the Grand Elder of the divine python tribe. Pei Yi looked up at the red-haired old man and said, "Grand Elder, don't be rude." The red-haired old man said angrily, What are you doing?" "He's the one who ruined the reputation of the divine python tribe." "That's the truth. Even if he doesn't say it, people will find out sooner or later," Pei Yi said. "What about Pei Yu and Pei Lang? Do they deserve to die too?" The red-haired old man hollered. Pei Yi said, "Have you ever thought about why second uncle chose Pei Yu and Pei Lang over Pei Zhe and Pei Luo because they're all second uncle's sons?" The red-haired old man frowned. Pei Yi said, "Because they're good-for-nothings. Even if they don't die in the hands of Ancestor Mu, they'll die in the hands of others sooner or later." They're all your family. How can you say that about them?" The red-haired old man looked at Pei Yi in disbelief. "I know. But have they ever treated me as their family? I believe I don't need to tell you this. You should know it in your heart," Pei Yi said calmly. The red-haired old man sighed deeply. In fact, he was not the only one who knew. Everyone in the divine python tribe knew that Pei Yu and Pei Lang had always disliked Pei Yi. They even harbored ill intentions towards him. It was no wonder that Pei Yi was so cold. The red-haired old man glanced at Qin Feiyong and humphed coldly. "No matter what, the divine python tribe doesn't welcome this person now. I don't plan to go to the divine python tribe either," Qin Feiyong said calmly. He turned to look at Pei Yi, cupped his fists and said with a smile, "I've done what I should do. I'll take my leave first." "Okay." Pei Yi nodded. Qin Feiyong opened the portal and left. The red-haired old man walked in front of Pei Yi and said earnestly, Listen to me. Don't interact with him too much in the future." Pei Yi said, "Listen to me too. Don't provoke him in the future. He's not someone we can afford to offend." The red-haired old man looked at the disappearing portal and frowned subtly. Back to Qin Feiyong. He did not return to Calming Lake. Instead, he descended on Black Cloud Valley. There were some things that he had to put an end to. He took out the image crystal. Soon, Mr. Hao's image appeared. "What are you doing so early in the morning?" Mr. Hao was still a little tipsy, probably because he drank too much last night. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Get Wang Yuer and come to Black Cloud Valley immediately." Mr. Hao was stunned and said impatiently, "If you have something to say, just say it. Why do you have to go to Black Cloud Valley? Just come. What's with the nonsense?" Qin Feiyong snorted and turned off the image crystal. He entered the ancient castle and started refining pills. Time passed by quickly. About half an hour passed. Mr. Hao and Wang Yu finally arrived at Black Cloud Valley. Qin Feiyong had already come out of the ancient castle. Looking at Qin Feiyong, Mr. Hao said unhappily, "Why did you wake me up so early in the morning? Let me tell you, if you don't have anything important to say today, I'm not done with you." Wang Yuer did not say anything and just looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong took out 2 jade boxes and handed them to the two of them. He smiled and said, "One for each of you." "What is it?" Mr. Hao was suspicious. "See for yourself," Qin Feiyong said. The two of them took the jade boxes and opened them. They were immediately stunned, only to see 7 medicinal pills lying quietly inside the jade box. Mr. Hao looked at the 7 pills suspiciously and then looked up at Qin Feiyong and asked, "What kind of pills are these?" "These 3 are potential pills. They can open the door of potential from the 1st to the 3rd level. These 2 are potential pills. They can open the door of potential from the 4th to the 5th level. These 2 are small fortune pills. They can open the door of potential from the 6th to the 7th level." Qin Feiyong explained them one by one. "What? There are pills that can open the door of potential?" The two of them were dumbfounded. Qin Feiyong ignored the two of them and continued, "Potential pills, and small fortune pills can only be taken when one is at the 9-star realm. For example, Wang Yu, you're a 9-star battle saint now, so you can take them. But if you need the help of pressure, you can look for your parents and grandfather. As for Brother Hao, you're a 1-star battle saint now. You can only take them when you're a 9-star battle saint. These precautions must be made clear, or else someone might die. Wait. Let me digest it first. Mr. Hao stretched out his hand. It felt too unreal. Wang Yuer was the same. In the past, Qin Feiyang took out the Xueqi yellow dragon pill, which had already shocked them. Now, he took out a pill that was even more shocking than the Xueqi yellow dragon pill. Potential pill? Potential pill? Small fortune pill? These medicinal pills, they had never even heard of them before. What was this guy doing? Mr. Hao suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked up at Qin Feiyang. That's not right, Brother Mu. You're too dishonest. Qin Feiyang's face darkened and said angrily, I've already revealed everything to you. Why aren't you honest? Since I can only take them when I'm a 9-star battle saint, why didn't you give them to me when I was still a 9-star battle saint? Now that I've broken through to a 1-star battle saint, you're giving me these pills. Then I can only stare at you? Mr. Hao frowned. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, Was our relationship so good at that time? Mr. Hao was about to cry. He was only a 1-star battle saint now. He didn't know how many years it would take to cultivate to a 9-star battle saint. Wasn't this torturing? Looking at Mr. Hao's tearful expression, Wang Yu raised her eyebrows and said, Don't be discontent. Of course you can say that. You're a 9-star battle saint now. You can use it immediately. When you open the door of potential, you'll immediately be reborn. At that time, you'll leave me a few streets behind. Mr. Hao said unhappily. Wang Yu suddenly became angry and said angrily, Then don't you know how to work harder? If you don't go to the Dragon Phoenix house a few more times, your cultivation will be more than this. Hearing this, Mr. Hao felt awkward. Wang Yu glared at him snappily, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Is this the reason why your cultivation speed is so fast? Yes. I have already opened the 6th level of the Gate of Potential. Qin Feiyang nodded. Wang Yu took a cold breath. He had actually opened the 6th level. Suddenly, she raised her eyebrows and said, Why? In the past, when I asked you to tell me these things, you weren't willing. Now that you're giving us so many pills, it's impossible for there to be no reason, right? She kept feeling that the Qin Feiyang today was different from before. Yeah, why? Mr. Hao also reacted and looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Chapter 1106. Wang Yu said, Stop talking nonsense, I want to hear the truth. Only a ghost would believe such words. Young Master Hao rolled his eyes and chuckled. Brother Mu, why don't you tell me secretly? Is it a betrothal gift for my sister? If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute. Wang Yuer's face was dark, and the veins on her forehead were throbbing. Couldn't he tell that they were discussing a very serious topic? However, if this was really a betrothal gift, then didn't that mean? Thinking of this, Wang Yuer's cheeks couldn't help but turn red. Looking at the red glow on Wang Yuer's face, young Master Hao secretly snorted. You're obviously looking forward to it, yet you're still angry at me. What kind of person is this? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He took out a 9-turn dragon blood pill and handed it to Wang Yuer. What kind of pill is this? Wang Yuer was stunned and asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, 9-turn dragon blood pill, it can let you easily step into the War Emperor. Wang Yuer was stunned. She looked at young Master Hao and asked in surprise. Is this the thing that allowed him to break through to the 1-star War Saint instantly? Qin Feiyang nodded. Wang Yuer reached out and grabbed the 9-turn dragon blood pill. Her heart was pounding like a deer. Could it be that this man really liked her? Otherwise, why would he tell her so many secrets without holding back? Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, a hint of melancholy between his brows. He had seen young Master Hao's feelings for him. He had already discovered Wang Yuer's feelings for him. If there weren't so many shackles, he would continue to maintain this relationship. But there were too many helplessness in this world. He had no choice. Taking advantage of the fact that no one had completely fallen into it, he had to cut the Gordian knot. Especially Wang Yuer. If this continued, they would definitely fall deeper and deeper. In the end, both sides would suffer. Thinking of this, his gaze turned cold, and his expression became cold and heartless. He said indifferently, "I've done what I should do. From now on, the three of us will cut off all ties." The two of them, who were lost in their thoughts, suddenly raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang. Cut off ties? Did they hear wrongly? What did you say? Young Master Hao asked. Qin Feiyang said, "I said from now on, the three of us will make a clean break with each other. We won't have anything to do with each other anymore." That's right. The two of them shuddered, their faces filled with disbelief. Why? Aren't we doing fine? Why do you want to cut him in half? Young Master Hao said angrily. Do you know? What I hate the most are you young masters and young mistresses. You think too highly of yourself and think too highly of yourself. I've had enough. When I was with you in the past, it was just as you said. I was using you. Because I have no power or influence. I have to find connections to climb up. Now that I've climbed up, I don't need you. As for these medicinal pills, consider them as your compensation. I don't want to owe anyone anything. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Impossible. Young Master Hao shook his head. Wang Yuer was so aggrieved that she burst into tears. He never thought that Qin Feiyang would say such heartless words. Use, remuneration. What did he take her for? Young Master Hao looked at Wang Yuer, who was sobbing like rain, and a monstrous anger rose in his heart. He grabbed Qin Feiyang's clothes and roared, "You tell me clearly, are you telling the truth or not?" Yes. Qin Feiyang coldly pulled young Master Hao's hand away, then looked at Wang Yuer and said, "Do you think I really like you? Let me tell you, I hate unruly, willful, and unreasonable women like you the most." Hearing these words, Wang Yuer's body and mind trembled. The jade box in her hand fell, and the medicinal pills scattered all over the ground. Bastard, have you said enough? Seeing this, young Master Hao was furious and slapped Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his hand and grabbed young Master Hao's arm. He said indifferently, "Don't be like this. If I didn't help you, you would still be a hedonistic young master. So, you should be thanking me." Okay, I thank you. Young Master Hao gritted his teeth, raised his other arm, and angrily punched Qin Feiyang in the chest. But this punch was neither painful nor itchy for Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and pushed young Master Hao back. He looked at the two of them expressionlessly and said, "Be sensible and don't bother me again. In addition, tomorrow I will tear up the marriage contract in public in the square of the Pill Pagoda. You are free." After saying that, Qin Feiyang opened the teleportation gate and left without looking back. Damn bastard, I won't let you go. Young Master Hao was like a mad beast, roaring again and again. Tear up the marriage contract. Wang Yuer's body and mind were also trembling. She slowly squatted on the ground, holding her head and crying bitterly. Her thin body was trembling, and she looked particularly helpless. Young Master Hao quickly squatted down and looked at Wang Yuer with concern. He said, "Sister, there are many good men in the world. There is no need to be sad over a heartless bastard." Before he could finish, Wang Yuer looked up at him and asked, "Am I really an unruly and unreasonable woman?" "How could that be? My sister is the kindest and most reasonable person. It's his blind dog eyes. Don't be sad. We will go find my father later and make him pay." Young Master Hao comforted her. "You go. I am tired and want to go back and rest." Wang Yuer shook her head and slowly got up. She opened the portal and walked in dejectedly. Her tears fell like rain and splashed on the ground. She had already forgotten about the jade box and those pills. "Ancestor Mu, you are unrighteous, right? Then don't blame me for being heartless." Young Master Hao clenched his hands, and a strong cold light burst out from his eyes. He then picked up the jade box and those pills, opened the portal, and left. Calm Heart Lake. Inside the ancient castle. Fatso frowned and said, "Boss, is it necessary to do this? Then tell me what to say. Say that I am here to snatch the Big Dipper flame and the 5-colored crystal?" Qin Feiyang said angrily, and he was also quite annoyed. Fatso lowered his head and said, "Then there is no need to be so ruthless." Qin Feiyang said, "If I am not ruthless, will they cut me in half?" Fatso said, "Now that they hate you so much, aren't you afraid of causing trouble? Lu Hong's dainty brows furrowed and she said angrily, I say, you damn fatty, can't you talk less? I can't tell that Qin Feiyong is also very uncomfortable now. Qin Feiyong waved his hand at Lu Hong. He looked at the fatty and said, I'm not afraid of trouble. It's fine as long as I can make them give up on me. As for me, I'm just a passerby here. A passerby, Fatso murmured. That's right. Whether it was Qin Feiyong or him, they were just passers-by. Sooner or later, they would leave. At the same time, in the pavilion of the Chief Pagoda Master, what were Gong Sun Bei and the Chief Pagoda Master discussing? Suddenly, young Master Hao appeared out of thin air and angrily ran into the pavilion, shouting, Old man, I want you to immediately throw that bastard ancestor Mu into prison. The two of them were taken aback as they looked suspiciously at young Master Hao. Young Master Hao said angrily, Just now, he asked me and my sister to go to Black Cloud Valley. He said that he has been using us and wants to cut off all ties with us. Cut off all ties? What is going on now? The two of them looked at each other in dismay. Shua! It was also at this moment. Another old man appeared in the courtyard. It was Wang Su. He also angrily rushed into the pavilion, looked at the Chief Pagoda Master and said, No matter what, you have to hand over Ancestor Mu to this old man. What's wrong with you? The Chief Pagoda Master frowned. Wang Su said angrily, He just bullied my granddaughter and threatened to tear up the marriage contract in front of everyone at the Pill Pagoda Square tomorrow. What? The two of them were dumbfounded. Wasn't this too big of a commotion? Gong Sun Bei looked at young Master Hao and asked, Junior brother, what's going on? Young Master Hao recounted what had happened in Black Cloud Valley in detail. Outrageous! Did he eat a leopard's guts? The Chief Pagoda Master was furious. My lord, please calm down. Gong Sun Bei's expression changed as he hurriedly comforted him. Then he looked at young Master Hao and said, You just said that he gave you a pill that can open the door of potential? Yes. Young Master Hao nodded, took out the two jade boxes, and placed them on the stone table. Gong Sun Bei grabbed one of the jade boxes and opened the lid. A trace of shock appeared on his face as he said, It's actually 7 pill patterns. 7 pill patterns? The Chief Pagoda Master was shocked. He grabbed the other jade box, and when he opened the lid, he was petrified on the spot. To be able to refine 7 pill patterns, this kid is really capable. But even so, this old man won't let him go for bullying my granddaughter. Wang Mo snorted angrily. Gong Sun Bei said, Elder Wang, please calm down. Let me ask him first. What's there to ask? Wang Mo said angrily. This kid really knows how to cause trouble. Gong Sun Bei couldn't help but feel exhausted. He looked at young Master Hao and said, Can these pills really open the door of potential? Young Master Hao shook his head and said, I don't know, but it shouldn't be fake. He has already opened the 6th level. The 6th level. The 3 leaders' eyes trembled. In the current world, those who could open the 1st level of the door of potential were extremely rare. This kid had actually opened the 6th level. Could it be that he could become a 4-star battle saint in such a short time? Gong Sun Bei pondered for a moment and sighed. I think I understand why he did this. Why? The 3 looked at him suspiciously. Gong Sun Bei smiled bitterly and said, My lord, it's so obvious. Can't you see it? The Chief Pagoda Master frowned. Gong Sun Bei looked at young Master Hao and Wang Mo and said with a smile, Junior brother, Elder Wang, you can go back first. We will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. No, you must give this old man an explanation now. This old man only has one granddaughter. Even this old man can't bear to scold or beat her. How dare he bully my granddaughter like this? This is unforgivable. Wang Su was fuming with rage. He was furious to the extreme. Gong Sun Bei smiled helplessly and opened a portal. He pushed Wang Mo into the portal and said, Old man, you are already so old. Why are you still so angry? Let the young people solve their own problems. You don't have to worry about it. Go back. Wang Mo said angrily, Nonsense, he bullied my granddaughter. Of course I have to worry about it. I know. You go back first. I will ask Ancestor Mu to personally apologize another day. Gong Sun Bei said impatiently. Wang Mo raised his eyebrows and said, You said it. If he doesn't take the initiative to apologize, I will hold you responsible. Fine, fine, fine. You can do whatever you want, Gong Sun Bei said. It was only then that Wang Su stopped and entered the portal. We finally sent that troublesome old man away. Gong Sun Bei wiped his sweat and said to young Master Hao, Junior brother, you go back too. Young Master Hao wanted to say something. Quick! Gong Sun Bei glared. Chapter 1107. After young Master Hao and Wang Su left, the chief pagoda master looked at Gong Sun Bei in confusion. Gong Sun Bei sighed. My lord, do you really not understand? He's trying to distance himself from this. Distance himself from this? The chief pagoda master frowned. Yes. If what junior brother said is true and he's using everyone, then why did he give junior brother and you these pills after he's done using them? You have to know that any one of these pills will cause a storm of blood if taken out. In terms of value, it's immeasurable. Think about it carefully. He's willing to give such precious pills to junior brother and you. Doesn't it mean that he actually cares about this friendship? Gong Sun Bei shook his head and sighed. The chief pagoda master felt that it made sense and said, So we've all wronged him. I think when he was preparing to do this, he already expected this result, so it doesn't matter whether he's wronged or not. He just wants to eliminate this suspicion. At the same time, he's also indirectly answering you that he won't assist junior brother. Gong Sun Bei said. The chief pagoda master asked, Then what kind of person do you think he is? Gong Sun Bei pondered for a moment and shook his head. To be honest, I don't know because I can't see through him. But I'm sure that he doesn't care about power. Phew! The chief pagoda master let out a long breath and smiled faintly. As long as he doesn't threaten Hao, he can do whatever he wants. My lord is wise. We should nurture such a person well. Moreover, he personally told me that if junior brother needs help in the future, he won't sit by and do nothing. I think this sentence is enough to show his position. Gong Sun Bei smiled. Yes. The chief pagoda master nodded and said, However, his engagement with you, can't be messed around. You know Wang Su's temper. If he really dares to break the engagement tomorrow, I think Wang Su will definitely think of a way to torture him. Gong Sun Bei nodded and said, The engagement can't be trifled with. I'll go talk to him tonight. You must persuade him. As long as he marries you with you-er's relationship, even if he doesn't want to assist Hao, you-er will definitely not agree. After all, you-er and Hao are like siblings. The chief pagoda master laughed. That makes sense. Gong Sun Bei nodded. What the two of them did not know was that their conversation had been overheard by the spirit serpent emperor, who was hiding among the flowers. It immediately found an opportunity to pass the message to Qin Feiyang. After learning of this, Qin Feiyang decisively decided to break off the engagement without waiting for tomorrow. Pill Pagoda Plaza. Qin Feiyang descended from the sky, not concealing his aura at all. It's Ancestor Mu. After sensing Qin Feiyang's aura, the people in the square immediately looked up at Qin Feiyang, their eyes filled with fear. Yesterday's incident at the North City Central Square was still fresh in everyone's minds. Qin Feiyang glanced at the people in the square, cupped his hands and said, I need everyone's help. Senior Marshal Brother Mu, why are you being so polite? Just say it. Yes, yes, yes. As long as it's within our ability, we will definitely do our best. Everyone exclaimed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Please inform your friends around you to come to the Pill Pagoda Square. I have something to announce. Something to announce? Everyone was stunned. Someone asked, Can anyone do it? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. For a moment, everyone took out their image crystals and sent messages to their friends around them. What? Ancestor Mu has something to announce at the Pill Pagoda Square? Wait here, I'll be right there. Those who received the news were all excited. They immediately rushed to the Pill Pagoda Square through the teleportation portal. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. Not long after, thousands of people gathered in the square, and the number was still increasing. Senior Marshal Brother Mu, what's the matter? Why did you call so many people here? Can you tell us now? Among these people, there were disciples of the Pill Pagoda and the Warrior Mountain Range, as well as disciples of the Sacred Land. There were also many outsiders who looked at Qin Feiyang curiously. Qin Feiyong glanced at everyone and cupped his hands. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here. Someone said impatiently, Senior Marshal Brother Mu, let's cut the formalities and get straight to the point. Okay. Then I'll say it. Qin Feiyong took out the marriage contract with Wang Yu and said, This is the marriage contract between Wang Yu and me. Now, I will tear it up in front of everyone and have nothing to do with her in the future. After saying that, Qin Feiyong clenched his hand and the marriage contract shattered on the spot. Scraps of paper flew everywhere. What? He actually tore up the marriage contract. What is he thinking? Everyone was in an uproar. Their faces were full of disbelief. One had to know. Whether it was Wang Yuer's appearance or her family background, she was the dream marriage partner of countless men. If it were someone else, they would cherish her, but this person actually destroyed the marriage contract. What was he thinking? How could he do such a stupid thing? At the same time, the old man guarding the teleportation altar also looked at Qin Feiyong with a dumbfounded expression. Was this kid crazy? Such a good marriage was destroyed just like that? After coming back to his senses, he immediately took out the image crystal. Bas! Gong Sun Bei's shadow appeared. The old man hurriedly said, Come to the square of the Pill Pagoda quickly. Something big has happened. What's the matter? Gong Sun Bei was suspicious. The old man said, Ancestor Mu has destroyed the marriage contract. What? He really dares to do it. Gong Sun Bei's expression changed. The chief pagoda master was also dumbfounded. If this matter were to reach Wang Mo's ears, it would be terrible. Thinking of this, the chief pagoda master quivered and shouted, Hurry up and deal with it. You must not let him continue to make trouble. Yes. Gong Sun Bei nodded and put away the image crystal. He immediately opened the teleportation gate and descended on the square of the Pill Pagoda. He shouted, Ancestor Mu, what are you doing? You're here so quickly. Qin Feiyong muttered and said with a smile, Brother Gong Sun, you came at the right time. Help me bear witness. Bear witness? Gong Sun Bei's face darkened. He said angrily, Aren't you messing around? I'm not messing around. I admit that is not only beautiful, but also has a good family background. Being able to marry her is a blessing that I've cultivated for 3 lifetimes. But it's also because of this that I can't marry her. Because I'm not worthy of her. Qin Feiyong said. I don't agree. The chief pagoda master didn't agree either. Gong Sun Bei said with a cold face. Qin Feiyong said, This is my personal matter. I don't need your approval. Impudent. Your marriage contract was made under the witness of the chief pagoda master, so this is no longer your personal matter. It's up to the chief pagoda master to decide whether to destroy this marriage or not you. Gong Sun Bei shouted angrily. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Gong Sun Bei said, Although the marriage contract has been destroyed, the marriage contract is still there. Come with me to see the chief pagoda master immediately. With that, he opened a portal. Qin Feiyong frowned. Gong Sun Bei shouted, Why aren't you leaving? Do you need me to call someone to carry you there? Qin Feiyong's pupils shrank. It could be seen that Gong Sun Bei was really angry. He sighed helplessly and strode into the portal. Gong Sun Bei looked at the crowd below and said, Ancestor Mu was just joking just now. Please don't talk nonsense. With that, he also entered the portal. He destroyed the marriage contract with his own hands. How can this be called a joke? Many people sneered in their hearts and immediately left. They spread the news through the image crystal. Soon, this matter became known to everyone and caused a huge commotion in Divine City. Ancestor Mu, are you done fooling around? At the same time, the chief pagoda master, who was sitting in the pavilion, looked at Qin Feiyong, who was standing outside with a face full of anger. This disciple is not fooling around. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and said. The chief pagoda master said, If you just want to prove to me, now that I have seen your intentions, I hope this matter will end here. Master, Qin Feiyong hurriedly said. Enough. Don't mention this again. The chief pagoda master shouted. Qin Feiyong looked at Gong Sun Bei for help. It's no use looking at me. I originally planned to have a good talk with you tonight, but I didn't expect you to act so fast. I was wondering, you clearly said that you would tear up the marriage contract tomorrow. Why did it suddenly change to now? Are you really so impatient? Do you know what the consequences will be once Wang Su finds out about this? Gongsun Bei was extremely angry. Boom! Before his voice faded, a terrifying aura descended above the courtyard. It's over. Speak of the devil. Gongsun Bei and the chief pagoda master immediately rubbed their foreheads. Because the owner of this aura was Wang Su. But this time, it was not only Wang Su who came, but also the Saint Peak Master and the Sacred Pagoda Master. Kid, you dare to appear in front of this old man. See if this old man doesn't cripple you today. As soon as Wang Su saw Qin Feiyong, he rushed down angrily. Father, don't be impulsive. Ask clearly first. Seeing this, the Saint Peak Master and the Sacred Pagoda Master's expression changed as they hurriedly chased down and stopped the angry Wang Su. Because they knew the old man's temper too well, if they didn't stop him, he might end up killing someone. The Chief Pagoda Master got up and said with a smile, "Yes, you are also an elder. If you have something to say, let's talk it out. Don't be so impulsive." Wang Su glanced at the three and glared fiercely at Qin Feiyong. He entered the pavilion angrily and sat on the stone bench, looking at Qin Feiyong and said, "Kid, don't say this old man didn't give you a chance. Tell me, what is wrong with my granddaughter that you hate so much?" The Saint Peak Master and the Sacred Pagoda Master also entered the pavilion, frowning and looking at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong looked at the three and sighed. "She is very good, I am not worthy of her." Wang Su shouted, "Be more specific, what is it?" Qin Feiyong said, "A lot, such as family background." The Sacred Pagoda Master frowned and said, "We didn't despise you. This has nothing to do with you, it's me who can't get over the hurdle in my heart, not to mention that my engagement with Wang Yu was forced by you." Qin Feiyong said. Wang Su said angrily, "According to you, it's our fault?" "It is." Qin Feiyong pursed his lips. If these people didn't insist on his engagement with Wang Yu, would Wang Yu have feelings for him? Chapter 1108. Bastard! If you hadn't done that kind of thing in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, would we have let you get engaged? Wang Su was furious. He slammed his palm on the stone table and stood up angrily. Qin Feiyong said, "We didn't do anything in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion." "Then do others know?" "Others only know that the two of you are lying on the bed and hugging each other." Wang Su shouted angrily. The Saint Peak Master frowned and said, "Ancestor Mu, as a man, you have to know how to be responsible. If you really break the engagement now, do you know how much damage it will do to you?" Qin Feiyong was quite angry. What did he do wrong? Why did they all come to force him? Yes, he admitted that he had taken advantage of Wang Yu in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, but that was because he was bewitched by Wang Yu's charm. If Wang Yu hadn't taken the initiative to seduce him, would things have gotten to this point? Forget about that. After all, he was a man and had to be responsible. He was going to be the heartless person. For example, now that the news of him breaking the engagement spread, there would definitely be people scolding him behind his back, saying that he was an irresponsible and heartless person. He had paid the price. But these people were still holding on to it. What kind of logic was this? The Chief Tower Master glanced at everyone, and his eyes flashed slightly. He sighed and said, "Everyone, calm down a little. Now is not the time to pursue who is right and who is wrong. We have to quickly think of a way to quell the rumors outside." Wang Su returned to the stone bench and said helplessly, "The news has already spread. How can we quell it?" The Chief Tower Master said, "I have a way." "What way?" They looked at him suspiciously. The Chief Tower Master said, "Immediately pick a good day and hold the marriage of the two of them. This way, those rumors will naturally disappear." "Good idea." Gongsun Bei nodded. Wang Su pondered for a moment before standing up and saying, "All right, let's do that. I'll immediately get someone to arrange it." Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, "Wait, have you asked our client's opinion?" Gongsun Bei said, "There's no need to ask. You just have to be the bridegroom with peace of mind." Qin Feiyong clenched his fists, his eyes full of anger. The Sacred Pagoda Master glanced at Qin Feiyong, then at Wang Su and the Chief Pagoda Master. He frowned and said, "Father Chief Pagoda Master, this is their life's most important matter. Isn't this too hasty? This old man has already made up his mind. No one is allowed to object." Wang Su waved his hand, then looked at Qin Feiyong and snorted coldly. Brat, don't be greedy. If it weren't for the incident at the Longfeng Pavilion, this old man wouldn't have married my granddaughter to you. Also, to be able to marry my, Wang Su's, granddaughter is the accumulated merit of your ancestors. You should go and burn incense. With that, Wang Su opened the teleportation gate and strode in, not giving Qin Feiyong a chance to speak at all. The Saint Peak Master and the Saint Peak Master looked at each other and smiled helplessly before following in. Qin Feiyong looked at the dissipating portal and raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked at the Chief Tower Master and said, Master this, the Chief Tower Master said. Enough, don't say anything. You are the one who caused this trouble. You have to face it. Go back and apologize to you. After all, you have to live together in the future. Qin Feiyong was extremely angry. He originally wanted to cut off all of this, but the result was the opposite of what he wanted. This time, it was really a big mess. He opened the portal and returned to the attic. He sat beside the tea table and lowered his head in contemplation. Marriage? Absolutely not. Because once his identity was exposed, both he and Wang Yue would fall into the abyss of pain. But what could he do now? Confess to Wang Yue? No. It was too risky. If Wang Yue knew his identity and told the Chief Tower Master, then not to mention the 5-colored crystal, even his life would be a problem. He had to get his hands on the 5-colored crystal. Because Yen Wei's million people were still waiting for him to save them. Sigh. A moment later, Qin Feiyong sighed helplessly. In fact, it was still the 5-colored crystal. If he could get the 5-colored crystal, why would he need to worry so much? Roar! Suddenly, a beast's roar sounded outside. Qin Feiyong was taken aback. He got up and opened the door, only to see a beast floating in the air above the courtyard. Qin Feiyong had seen it before. It was the beast that stopped Chu Xian by the lake. The beast looked at Qin Feiyong and said in a muffled voice, Someone came to Jingxin Lake to look for you. Who? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. The beast said, I think it's Li Yan. What is she doing here? Qin Feiyong frowned and suddenly thought of something. He shook his head and smiled. I know, let her go back first. I will go to the cave to find her later. Okay. The beast nodded and turned to leave. Qin Feiyong glanced at young Master Hao in Wang Yue's courtyard, closed the door, and took Fatso out of the castle, saying, I won't force you to do anything, understand? Understood. Fatso nodded and opened the portal to leave. The meaning of these words was quite obvious. If Li Yan really liked him, he could choose to be with Li Yan. For Li Yan, he could even leave Qin Feiyong and stay in the Central Divine Kingdom. However, in Fatso's heart, he had already made a choice. About an hour passed. Fatso came back, looking quite excited, but with a trace of helplessness. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong asked. Fatso said excitedly, Do you know? This is the first time in Fat Lord's life that a woman took the initiative to confess. Li Yan confessed? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Did she really like this guy? Fatso lowered his head and said with a sad face. Similarly, this is also the first time in Fat Lord's life that he rejected her. I don't even know where he found the courage to do so. Qin Feiyong patted his shoulder to comfort him. Fatso suddenly looked up at Qin Feiyong and said, Boss, Fat Lord has a request. Say it. Qin Feiyong said. Fatso said, Can you give Li Yan some pills? Sure. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Thank you. Fatso looked at Qin Feiyong gratefully and then hung his head dejectedly. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. He entered the ancient castle and refined 3 potential pills. 2 potential pills, 2 small creation pills, and 1 9 revolutions dragon blood pill. All of them had 7 pill patterns. Then, he put them in a jade box and left the ancient castle, handing them to Fatso. Fatso opened the teleportation gate again to look for Li Yan. Not long after, he returned. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, Now I feel relaxed. But what about you? If you don't think of a way, I'm afraid you'll really have to marry Wang Yue. The Chief Tower Master and Wang Su had already steeled their hearts. Qin Feiyong had no choice but to follow their arrangements. I'm also having a headache. Qin Feiyong lowered his head weakly. How on earth would he be able to get his hands on this 5-colored crystal? I thought of someone. Fatso suddenly said. Who? Qin Feiyong's spirit was lifted as he looked at Fatso. Miss Longfeng Pavilion. Fatso said. Her. Qin Feiyong frowned. After pondering for a while, he nodded and said, "All right, let's go find her." With that, Qin Feiyong stood up and sent Fatso to the ancient castle. Then, he opened the teleportation gate and directly descended into the room of the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion. The layout of the room was the same as before. In front of him was a curtain. Behind the curtain sat a hazy figure. The pleasant sound of a zither could be heard. Qin Feiyong's appearance did not stop the sound of the zither. Qin Feiyong did not disturb the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion. He sat on the only chair in the room and quietly listened to the sound of the zither. The sound of the zither was like a high mountain and flowing water, purifying the soul. Unknowingly, the irritation in Qin Feiyong's heart gradually calmed down. About half an hour passed. The sound of the zither finally came to an end, and there was a burst of cheers outside. "Young Master Qin, are you still upset?" The voice of the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion also came from behind the curtain. It was a heavenly sound. Qin Feiyong came back to his senses and said with a faint smile, "It seems that Miss has already expected that I would come." The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion smiled and said, "I don't have the ability to foresee things like a god. It's purely a guess." Qin Feiyong said, "Regardless of whether it's a guess or a godly foresight, since I'm here today, you have to give me an explanation." "What explanation?" the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion asked. Qin Feiyong's gaze turned cold as he said, "Aren't you asking the obvious? Back then at Cloud Mountain Range, then at Black Cloud Valley, your appearance, don't tell me it's a coincidence." "That's right." The golden figure that appeared time and time again was this mysterious woman in front of him. "It's not a coincidence." The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion was silent for a moment before replying. Qin Feiyong said, "Since it's not a coincidence, then how can you clearly grasp my whereabouts?" The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion fell silent again. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. One had to know. Whether it was going to Cloud Mountain Range or Black Cloud Valley, he had used the teleportation gate to go there directly. If it was tracking, it was impossible to do so. Therefore, there must be some kind of mystery that he did not know about. No comment for the time being. After waiting for a long time, the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion finally replied. However, this reply almost made Qin Feiyong go berserk. "I'll endure it." Qin Feiyong took a deep breath, calmed the anger in his heart, and said, "All right, tell me when you want to say it. Now, let me ask you a question." "What question?" the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion asked. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, his battle chi gushed out, condensing into a 5-colored crystal stone, and asked, "Do you know what this is?" The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion smiled and said, "Isn't this your purpose in entering the main tower?" Hee. Qin Feiyong laughed. "What are you laughing at?" The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, "So the person the mysterious madam is talking about is you?" The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion was surprised. "All these years, I've been guessing your identity. I suspected that you might be a member of the Mu family, and I also suspected that you might be a member of the mysterious madam. And now, I can finally confirm that you are the person who will help me at the critical moment that the mysterious madam said." Qin Feiyong said. "How do you know?" the Miss of Longfeng Pavilion asked. "Because the people of the Mu family don't know that I'm here for the 5-colored crystal stone. They only think that I'm here to cooperate with them to snatch the heavenly dipper flame. So, if you're a member of the Mu family, it's impossible for you to know about this." Qin Feiyong said. The Miss of Longfeng Pavilion was silent for a while, then sighed. "I didn't expect that I would be tricked by you. It seems that I have to be more cautious when interacting with you." Chapter 1109. Qin Feiyong said, "Then can we be honest with each other now?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "I think I'm already honest enough." "You're honest?" Qin Feiyong scoffed and said indifferently, "I don't want to talk nonsense anymore. Let's get to the point. How can I get the 5-colored crystal as soon as possible? This matter can't be rushed." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house answered straightforwardly. Qin Feiyong said angrily, "You're not in a hurry, but I am. The Chief Tower Master and Wang Su are already choosing a date for me to marry Wang Yuer. This is a good thing." Without waiting for Qin Feiyong to finish, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house smiled. A good thing? Qin Feiyong raised his brows. That's right. Wang Su's family has a very high status in the Chief Tower Master's heart. They can even be compared to his family. After you and Wang Yuer get married, the Chief Tower Master will definitely completely relax his guard against you. At that time, your chances of snatching the 5-colored crystal will naturally be higher. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House said. Qin Feiyong said solemnly, "You're asking me to take advantage of Wang Yuer's feelings." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House smiled faintly and said, "The Chief Tower Master is not an ordinary person. To deal with him, you have to use extreme methods." Qin Feiyong said, "This is your concept, not mine. I will never do such a thing." "You're too stubborn." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House sighed. "This is not stubbornness. It's a matter of principle. At the very least, you can't hurt someone who likes you. This is the standard of being a person." Qin Feiyong said. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House said, "What about Yan Wei's million clansmen? Don't you want to save them?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. It was because he wanted to save Yan Wei's clansmen that he entered the Chief Tower. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House said, "Since you want to save them, then you have no choice but to do as I say." "No. I still have a choice." Qin Feiyong's gaze turned cold. "What choice?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix House was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said, "Give up on snatching the 5-colored crystal, confess my identity to the Chief Pagoda Master, and announce your relationship with the mysterious madam." The Miss of the Longfeng Pavilion said, "You are playing with fire and burning yourself." "Yes, I am playing with fire." "You're definitely going to ask me if I don't care about Yan Wei's people anymore." "Yes, I don't care." "Kill them if you can. But let me tell you, they will not die in vain, because I will make you pay." "You are very strong now, and I am no match for you, but what about the future?" "Although I, Qin Feiyong, am not a peerless genius, I am still confident. 10 years. I only need 10 years to crush all of you under my feet." Qin Feiyong smiled sinisterly. Hearing these words, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion felt a chill in her heart, and a sense of fear that could not be resolved emerged in her heart. If it were someone else, she would definitely scoff. However, she did not dare to underestimate the person in front of her. Qin Feiyong sneered. "Now answer me, are you afraid?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion remained silent, but the fear in her eyes could not be concealed. Although she did not spend much time with Qin Feiyong, she understood Qin Feiyong very well. In terms of talent, whether it was martial arts talent or alchemy talent, no one in the entire continent could compare to him. In terms of brains, even those old monsters who had lived for countless years would not be able to play with him. The most important thing was that he still had a life-saving ancient castle. No one had the ability to kill him in the cradle. Who wouldn't be afraid of such a potential enemy? "If you're afraid, don't threaten me again in the future." Qin Feiyong snorted coldly, implying that he was not someone to be trifled with. He then said, "Now tell me, how can I get the 5-colored crystal as soon as possible? I believe you will definitely have a way." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was silent for a moment, then sighed. "Go back and wait for my news. I will make the arrangements." "How long?" Qin Feiyong asked. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Not too long." Qin Feiyong looked at her deeply, then stood up and took out the image crystal. After establishing the contract bridge, he opened the teleportation gate. "Also, don't make use of young Master Hao's feelings for you." With that, Qin Feiyong entered the teleportation gate without looking back. After Qin Feiyong left, the eyes of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion flickered as she awakened the image crystal. Buzz! After more than 10 breaths, a phantom image appeared. It was an old man dressed in white with an ordinary appearance. There was a scar above his left eye, but he gave off an otherworldly aura. "Teacher." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion bowed respectfully. "What's wrong?" the old man asked hoarsely, his old face showing a trace of doting love for the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Just now, Qin Feiyong came to look for me." The old man was stunned and asked, "What did he say?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion explained what had happened in detail. "Sigh. You were too careless. This child is a person who is very good at seizing opportunities. Now that he knows about your relationship with Madam, he has taken the initiative. It's very disadvantageous for us. The old man sighed. I'm sorry. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. Forget it. I can't blame you for this. It's all that little fellow's fault for being too smart. The old man shook his head and smiled. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, Then now the old man said, there's no other way. I'll go and make the arrangements. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said worriedly, What if your identity is exposed? As long as the plan is thorough, it shouldn't be. If it's really exposed, as long as I can get the 5-colored crystal, it's worth it. However, there's a need to inform Madam about this matter first. Send a message to Madam later and see if she has any thoughts? The old man said. Okay. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded. Calming Heart Lake. After returning to the pavilion, Qin Feiyong sat cross-legged on the balcony and closed his eyes to cultivate. Time passed day by day. On the third day, a piece of news spread in the Divine City. Gong Sun Bei announced in the Pil Pagoda Square that 5 days later, a wedding ceremony would be held for Qin Feiyong and Wang Yuer. He also invited all the tyrants to be guests. How could this be? The moment the news came out, it instantly set off an unprecedented storm in the Central Divine Kingdom. While people were discussing fervently, they could not help but feel puzzled. Didn't Qin Feiyong just destroy the marriage contract a few days ago? Why was he suddenly getting married? Could it be that it was really as Gong Sun Bei said at that time, that Qin Feiyong was just joking with everyone? Father, mother, grandfather, before you decide on this matter, shouldn't you at least discuss it with me? In a certain courtyard, Wang Yuer looked at Wang Su and the other two sitting beside the coffee table with a face full of anger. The woman smiled and said, we're doing this for your own good. Wang Yuer said, If the two of them are truly in love, I have nothing to say. But now it's my wishful thinking. The woman said with a straight face, Who said it's your wishful thinking? Ancestor Mu has never denied that he doesn't like you. Wang Yuer said, He hasn't denied it, but can't you see what he's thinking? He doesn't want to marry me at all. It's not up to him. Wang Su snorted through his nose. Wang Yuer said angrily, Grandfather, you're old and muddle-headed. If you do this, we won't be happy. It will only make us suffer more. How dare you? Who are you talking to? Wang Su was also angry. Seeing Wang Su angry, the woman's expression changed slightly. She quickly got up, walked to Wang Yuer, and said in a low voice, This marriage has been decided by your grandfather and the chief tower master. No one can change it. Don't make a fuss. Go back and be a good bride. Mother. Wang Yuer was so anxious that tears were about to come out. The woman patted her shoulder and said with a smile, All right, don't say anything. Go back. Fine, you can do whatever you want. In any case, in your eyes, I'm just a puppet. I don't have any right to choose. Wang Yuer shed tears of grievance, turned around, and ran out. Looking at Wang Yuer's back, the woman could not bear it. She turned to look at Wang Su and said, Father, why don't we think about it again? Wang Su waved his hand and said, There's nothing to think about. Don't worry about it. Remember, it has to be grand. After all, I'm marrying my granddaughter. Sigh. Seeing that Wang Su had made up his mind, the couple looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Although they gave birth to their daughter, everything in the family was decided by the old man. There was nothing they could do. As for Wang Yuer, she returned to Soothing Lake and looked at Qin Feiyong sitting on the balcony. She immediately felt indignant. Because of this matter, she was almost angry. But this guy was still in the mood to cultivate? Ancestor Mu! She shouted and landed in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong opened his eyes and looked at Wang Yuer suspiciously. Originally, he had a stomach full of anger, but when facing Qin Feiyong, Wang Yuer didn't know what to say. Grandfather and Chief Pagoda Master have already decided to hold a wedding ceremony for us in 5 days. I went to look for them, but it was useless no matter what I said. If you really don't want to marry me, it's not too late to leave now. Finished. Wang Yuer turned around and flew towards her courtyard. 5 days later. So fast. Qin Feiyong frowned, and then raised his head to look at Wang Yuer's back. His emotions extremely complicated. You and I can only say that we are not fated to be together. A moment passed. Qin Feiyong sighed, got up and returned to the pavilion, taking out the image crystal. Bas! The illusory image of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house appeared. Her face was still covered by a veil, looking mysterious and unfathomable. Qin Feiyong frowned. I will be marrying Wang Yuer in 5 days, haven't you arranged it yet? I was just about to look for you. At midnight, sneak into the Chief Pagoda Master's courtyard. You might find an opportunity. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Maybe. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Chief Pagoda Master is more shrewd than you think. I can't say 100% to you. Qin Feiyong looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house, and finally nodded after a while. All right, it's better to have a chance than not. I will be there on time at midnight. Then I'll wait for your good news. Also, if you really get the 5-colored crystal, you have to think of a way to hand it over to me immediately. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house warned. Qin Feiyong did not reply, directly turning off the image crystal and falling into deep thought. Chapter 11:10. One had to know. The cold ice flame was the key to opening the miracle. How precious was it? But back then, the mysterious lady gave it to him without even blinking. There were also perfect battle arts. The mysterious lady had given them no less than 10 perfect battle arts. Especially this concealment art. If he wasn't wrong, the concealment art should have been given to him by the mysterious lady. Although the concealment art wasn't a divine art, in terms of practicality, it was already comparable to a divine art. She was even willing to give him such a precious battle art. But now she was scheming to obtain the 5-colored crystal. Obviously. This 5-colored crystal was more valuable than anything else. But what was its value? Qin Feiyong couldn't figure it out. Time passed bit by bit. On this day, Qin Feiyong could be said to have felt like a year. Finally, dawn was approaching. Success or failure depends on this. Qin Feiyong looked out of the window at the moonlight. A determined light flashed across his eyes as he decisively opened the teleportation gate. Then, he activated the concealment art and entered the teleportation gate. The next moment, he descended outside the Chief Pagoda Master's courtyard. The waning moon hung high in the sky and the night was hazy. In the courtyard, Qin Feiyong didn't see the Chief Pagoda Master, but a window on the 2nd floor of the pavilion emitted a weak candlelight. Qin Feiyong soared into the air and flew to the window. The window was half closed. Looking through the window, one could clearly see that the Chief Pagoda Master was sitting in front of his desk, holding an ancient book in his hand and quietly reading it. His entire body emitted a scholarly aura. Looking at this scene, perhaps no one would have thought that such a modest gentleman would actually be a selfish villain. It's dawn. Why isn't there any movement? Qin Feiyong looked at the moonlight and couldn't help but frown. The concealment art could only be maintained for an hour. Once the time was up, even if the Chief Pagoda Master took out the 5-colored crystal, he wouldn't be able to snatch it. Right. Where's the Spirit Snake Emperor? Qin Feiyong scanned the courtyard. Where was this guy hiding now? If something happened later, it might be implicated, so he had to find it first. However, he and the Spirit Snake Emperor were both in a hidden state and couldn't see each other. How could he find it? Suddenly, his eyes lit up. If the Spirit Snake Emperor had really been monitoring the Chief Tower Master, then it should be here right now. Qin Feiyong looked at the window. The window was the best place to monitor the Chief Tower Master. 4 potted plants were placed on the windowsill. They were verdant and full of vitality. As expected. After careful observation, Qin Feiyong found the Phantom Snake Emperor among the green leaves of one of the potted plants. The Spirit Snake Emperor had shrunk to the size of a strand of hair, and its skin had become one with the green leaves. If one did not look for it deliberately, it would be impossible to find it. Qin Feiyong carefully reached out and grabbed the Spirit Snake Emperor. The sudden change startled the Spirit Snake Emperor. It thought that its whereabouts had been exposed. Shoo, it's me. Qin Feiyong hurriedly transmitted his voice. The Spirit Serpent Emperor was taken aback. It immediately glared at Qin Feiyong and said angrily, "You scared me to death." Qin Feiyong teased. "When did you become so timid?" "Nonsense. Why don't you take a look at where you are now?" The Spirit Serpent Emperor glared at him and asked, "Why did you suddenly come here?" Qin Feiyong said, "Something might happen later." What's going on? The Spirit Serpent Emperor was surprised. I'm not sure either. Qin Feiyong shook his head. If you're not sure, why did you come here? The Spirit Serpent Emperor was speechless. Boom. However, before it could finish its words, a terrifying emperor's aura suddenly descended on the courtyard. Qin Feiyong was shocked. He hurriedly brought the Spirit Serpent Emperor out of the courtyard and stood behind a big tree. Immediately, he saw a black figure standing in the sky above the courtyard. Through the hazy moonlight, he could vaguely see that the black figure was wearing a black mask that covered its face. Who's there? Almost at the next moment, the Chief Tower Master's voice rang out in the pavilion. Then, with a flash, the Chief Tower Master appeared in the sky above the courtyard and stood in the air with the black figure. Hand over the divine crystals, the black figure said coldly. It was like the voice of the Grim Reaper, without the slightest emotion. Divine crystals. Hearing these two words, the Chief Tower Master's eyes trembled. He shouted, "Who are you? How do you know about the divine crystals?" Boom. The black figure did not answer and directly attacked. He threw a punch at the Chief Tower Master. Battle chi surged, shocking the surroundings. Who dares to behave atrociously in the Chief Tower? A violent roar rang out, shaking the heavens and the earth. Then, streams of light flew into the sky from all corners of the sacred ground. Each of them emitted an extremely powerful aura. There was Gong Sun Bei. There was the second grandpa of the Mu family, Lu Xingfeng. There was Wang Yuer's parents. There was also Wang Su. In short, all the experts of the sacred ground rushed toward the Chief Tower Master's courtyard at this moment. The terrifying aura shook the sky. Damn, there are at least 1,000 combat emperor auras. The Spirit Serpent Emperor's pupils shrank. It was full of fear. The strength of the Chief Tower can't be underestimated. No wonder even the Mu family doesn't dare to go against the Chief Tower openly. Qin Feiyong mumbled. This was also the first time he had seen the true strength of the Chief Tower. At the same time, seeing that the black figure had attacked in the Chief Tower, the Chief Tower Master was furious. His aura changed greatly in an instant. If he was a modest gentleman before, then he was now a true ruler of the world. Boom. His eyes shone like two bright moons. He did not dodge at all and slammed his palm toward the black figure. In an instant, when their palms collided, a destructive shockwave rolled out in all directions with the two of them as the center. The courtyard below was instantly turned into ashes. Not good. Qin Feiyong's expression changed. He hurriedly brought the Spirit Serpent Emperor into the castle. Just as he stepped into the castle, the shockwave roared toward him. Everywhere it went, everything was like ants. They could not withstand a single blow and were turned into ashes. Fortunately, there was no one living near the Chief Tower Master. Otherwise, this attack would be enough to kill anyone. At the same time, the Chief Tower Master and the black figure both took a few steps back. A trace of blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths. The Chief Tower Master lowered his head and looked at the mess below. He looked up at the black figure and said in a deep voice, "9-star Combat Emperor, who are you?" "Cut the crap. I want the divine crystals," the black figure shouted. His words were as sharp as a blade, sonorous and powerful. "Do you think you are qualified to covet the divine crystals?" The Chief Tower Master's body shook and a vast aura broke out from his body. Moreover, within this pressure, there was actually a terrifying divine might. The black figure's pupils shrank. He turned around and flew away without hesitation. He was extremely fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye. What happened? Why does his aura contain divine aura? Has he broken through to the false god realm? Qin Feiyong and the Spirit Serpent Emperor came out of the castle. When they felt the aura of the Chief Tower Master, the Spirit Serpent Emperor's eyes were filled with fear. No, he has not broken through to the false god realm. He must have mastered some kind of divine skill. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice. Divine skill. The Spirit Serpent Emperor's eyes trembled. It was no wonder that the black figure had turned around and fled. Whoosh! At this moment, Gong Sun Bei and the others flew through the air and landed in front of the Chief Tower Master. They were all concerned. The Chief Tower Master said in a deep voice, "I'm fine. Gong Sun Bei and Wang Su, stay here. The rest of you, bring people to lock down the Divine City and check if there are any suspicious people." Yes. The Peak Master of St. Peak and the others responded respectfully. They then opened the portal and left. Gongsun Bei frowned and said, "My lord, who is it?" The Chief Tower Master restrained his aura and said in a low voice, "I did not see clearly. His aura is also very strange. He is here for the divine crystals." What? Gongsun Bei and Wang Su were shocked. Divine crystals? The Spirit Serpent Emperor was stunned and asked, "Could the divine crystals be the five-colored crystal?" "It's possible." Qin Feiyong nodded. After Wang Su came back to his senses, he looked at the Chief Tower Master and said in surprise, "Only the people at the top of our Chief Tower know about the divine crystals. Could this person be someone from our Chief Tower?" Gongsun Bei and the Chief Tower Master looked at each other and lowered their heads, their eyebrows tightly furrowed. The Chief Tower Master's eyes flashed coldly as he looked at the two and said, "Go and check if anyone has left before." "Okay." The two nodded and turned around to go deeper into the sacred land. The Chief Tower Master also turned in the air and flew in another direction. Qin Feiyong also immediately soared into the sky and silently chased after the Chief Pagoda Master. If he guessed correctly, that black figure was definitely arranged by the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's young lady. However, he did not understand such an arrangement, because it was the same as alerting the enemy. Following the Chief Tower Master, a courtyard soon entered Qin Feiyong's sight. The courtyard was not big and looked a bit old, but it was very clean. This was another residence of the Chief Tower Master. The Chief Tower Master landed in the courtyard and went straight into the attic and closed the door. Qin Feiyong also landed in front of the loft with the Phantom Snake Emperor. He looked inside through the tiny crack in the door. However, the gap was too small and he could only see a little bit of the hall. He could not see the Chief Tower Master. "No, I have to think of a way to go in." Qin Feiyong took a few steps back and looked up at the attic. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto the second floor's balcony. The door on the balcony was open. Shwa! Without hesitation, he jumped up and landed on the balcony. "Don't make a sound." Letting out a long sigh, Qin Feiyong instructed the Spirit Serpent Emperor in his mind. Then, without touching the ground, he entered the pavilion and walked up the stairs to the hall on the first floor. Immediately, he saw the Chief Tower Master sitting next to the tea table with a gloomy face. "What is he thinking?" Spirit Serpent Emperor asked suspiciously. "Don't talk, just watch." Qin Feiyong stared at it. Time passed breath by breath. Suddenly, the motionless Chief Tower Master raised his arm and flipped his hand. A multicolored crystal appeared in his hand. "That's it." The Phantom Snake Emperor was excited. Qin Feiyong's eyes were also shining. But suddenly, he was stunned and then the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "I understand." "What do you understand?" Chapter 11:11. Qin Feiyong muttered, "The Black Shadow's purpose." "What purpose?" The more the Spirit Snake Emperor listened, the more puzzled it became. "Previously, I was wondering why the Black Shadow did this. Isn't this alerting the enemy? But now, seeing the Chief Pagoda Master take out the five-colored crystal, I finally understand that he wants to alert the enemy. Because no matter who it is, they will have an instinct and habit. For example, now that the Chief Pagoda Master knows that the Black Shadow is here for the five-colored crystal, he will definitely take out the five-colored crystal to check it out. And this is the opportunity he created for us." Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. The Spirit Snake Emperor said, "You mean the Black Shadow did it on purpose?" "Yes. Rather than alerting the enemy, it's more like luring the snake out of its hole. This young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is not simple. She has seen through the nature of human nature." Qin Feiyong secretly sighed. The Spirit Snake Emperor urged, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it. After working so hard for so long, wasn't it all for this? You are more anxious than me." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. The Spirit Snake Emperor said, "Nonsense, you have been guarding the Chief Pagoda Master every day. If it were you, wouldn't you want to end it sooner?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. Then, he held his breath and carefully walked toward the Chief Pagoda Master. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Finally, he walked to the Chief Pagoda Master and was only 1 meter away from him. At this moment, whether it was Qin Feiyong or the Spirit Snake Emperor, they all stopped breathing and closed their pores. They were extremely nervous. This was because the person in front of them was a 9-star combat emperor, who had mastered a divine art. If they were discovered, not only would they not be able to get the 5-colored crystal, they might even lose their lives here. Hurry up! Seeing that Qin Feiyong did not make a move, the Spirit Snake Emperor anxiously shouted. Looking at Qin Feiyong again, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Dong! Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The Chief Pagoda Master turned his head and asked, "Who is it?" "It's us." Gong Sun Bei's voice sounded outside. "Come in." The Chief Pagoda Master nodded and prepared to put away the 5-colored crystal. "We can't delay any longer." Qin Feiyong gritted his teeth, stepped forward, grabbed the 5-colored crystal, and rushed to the second floor like lightning. Chief Pagoda Master stared blankly at his palm. Where were the divine crystals? How could he just watch as he disappeared? Creak. Gong Sun Bei and Wang Su pushed open the door. "Who? Get the hell out here." It was also at this moment. The Chief Pagoda Master suddenly stood up. His aura erupted, and the pavilion was instantly razed to the ground. Gong Sun Bei and his companion were caught off guard and were sent flying as well. Blood flowed out of their mouths. Their faces were filled with bewilderment. What was going on? At the same time, Qin Feiyong, who had just run to the balcony on the second floor and was about to leave, was also forced to reveal his true form under the terrifying aura. Furthermore, like Wang Su, he was sent flying on the spot. But the situation was worse than Wang Su and his companion. Although Wang Su and his companion were also sent flying, they were unprepared. In terms of strength, Gong Sun Bei might be a little weaker, but Wang Su was not weaker than the Chief Pagoda Master. And Qin Feiyong was only a 4-star battle saint. How could he be unscathed in the face of the Chief Pagoda Master's aura? Not only were his internal organs shattered, but his body was also badly mutilated. Even his qi was shattered. The heart-wrenching pain struck every nerve in his body, and his consciousness was fainting. Finally, with a bang, like a meteorite, he smashed into a forest in the distance. But in his hand, he held the 5-colored crystal tightly. What? It's actually purple gold blood? The Chief Pagoda Master also noticed Qin Feiyong at the first moment. However, because all of this happened too quickly, he didn't see Qin Feiyong's true appearance. He only saw the purple gold dragon blood on Qin Feiyong's body. But it was this purple gold dragon blood that made his body and mind tremble. His face was filled with disbelief. At this moment, Gong Sun Bei and his companions steadied their bodies and looked at the small forest in the distance. Then they looked at the Chief Pagoda Master and asked, "What happened?" The Chief Pagoda Master didn't answer and scanned the ground. Soon, he found a large amount of purple gold dragon blood on the ground not far away. Swish! He took a step forward and landed on the ground. He squatted on the ground and observed closely. There's dragon power. It's indeed purple gold dragon blood. The next moment, he suddenly stood up, and his eyes were filled with coldness. How is this possible? This is purple gold dragon blood. Wang Su and Gong Sun Bei came over to take a look. Their expressions changed instantly. Obviously, they also knew the secret of the purple gold dragon blood. Gong Sun Bei asked in surprise, "My lord, what happened?" The Chief Pagoda Master said, "The divine crystal was stolen, and this person should be a descendant of the Qin Emperor." What? Their expressions changed greatly. At the same time, in the small forest, there was a huge deep pit. Qin Feiyong was lying inside, dripping with blood. His eyes were closed as if he had fainted, and his breath was extremely weak. Suddenly, he slowly opened his eyes and shook his dizzy head. His face was filled with fear. Too strong. It was just an aura, and it almost killed him. Was a 9-star combat emperor so terrifying? But the next moment, his expression changed and he roared, "Spirit Snake Emperor, where are you? Come out quickly." "Stop shouting, I'm not dead yet." The Spirit Snake Emperor's weak voice sounded behind Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong struggled to get up. The pain all over his body made him grimace. But he couldn't care less about the pain now. He quickly turned around and looked at the Spirit Snake Emperor. When he saw the Spirit Snake Emperor's condition, he was stunned. The Spirit Snake Emperor was lying on the ground. Its body was also covered in wounds, but its small eyes didn't show any obvious signs of weakness. This was strange. One had to know. The Spirit Snake Emperor's cultivation was lower than his. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and hid behind you in time, so I wasn't hit by the aura. Otherwise, with my cultivation, I would have died long ago. It's too scary. I don't want to see him again in this lifetime. The Spirit Snake Emperor got up, its eyes filled with fear. I'm afraid it won't be as you wish. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. He had already sensed that the Chief Pagoda Master's aura was approaching. However, as long as the Spirit Snake Emperor was not dead, it was fine. Otherwise, he would feel guilty and blame himself for the rest of his life. As expected. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 figures broke through the air and landed above the deep pit. It's you, Ancestor Mu. When they saw Qin Feiyong's true appearance, the Chief Pagoda Master and the other 2 were once again in disbelief. Yes, it's me. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at the 3 of them, nodding. Now that the 5-colored crystal was in his hands, there was no need to hide it anymore. Why? Wang Su roared. Qin Feiyong looked at the 5-colored crystal and smiled faintly. I entered the Chief Pagoda for this. What? For the divine crystal? So you're really using young Master Hao and you are? Gong Sun Bei shouted. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. As long as he admitted it now, Wang Yuer would definitely give up on him completely. This is too much. I'm going to kill you with my own hands. Wang Su was furious. Old Wang, wait. The Chief Pagoda Master reached out and stopped Wang Su. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, How do you know about the divine crystal? Who are you to the Qin Emperor? What's your relationship with that black shadow just now? The Qin Emperor is my ancestor. As for my true identity, I believe you should be able to guess it now. As for how I know about the divine crystal and that black shadow, I have no comment. Qin Feiyong said. You can guess it? The 3 of them frowned. Suddenly, Gong Sun Bei's eyes trembled as he exclaimed, You're Qin Feiyong? Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Brother Gong Sun, you're smart. It's you. You've hidden it well. The Chief Pagoda Master said word by word as his eyes flashed with killing intent. Thank you for the compliment. You're not bad yourself. On the surface, you asked me to be your disciple, but you secretly sent someone to kill me. Qin Feiyong sneered. Wang Su raised his eyebrows and said, Don't slander me. When did the Chief Pagoda Master send someone to kill you? Old Wang, you still don't know? When I accompanied young Master Hao and Wang Yuer to Azure Sea, he sent a 7-star combat emperor to assassinate me. I don't know the name of this 7-star combat emperor, but you definitely know him. He's an old man with only 1 arm. Qin Feiyong said. Old man? 1 arm. Wang Su was stunned. He turned to look at the Chief Pagoda Master and asked, Is he talking about the Deputy Master of the Oracle Palace, 1-armed? Or the Deputy Master of the Oracle Palace? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He looked at the Chief Pagoda Master and said, Not bad, not bad. He's a big fish. Unfortunately, he died like this. For the Chief Pagoda, it should be a big loss, right? Shut up. Wang Su shouted at Qin Feiyong. He looked at the Chief Pagoda Master and asked, Is this true? It's not important anymore. The Chief Pagoda Master replied expressionlessly. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Hand over the divine crystals immediately. Do you think it's possible? Qin Feiyong said lightly. At the same time, he was also thinking of a way to escape. Entering the ancient castle could only temporarily hide. Therefore, he didn't hide in the ancient castle immediately. He wanted to escape quickly. But he didn't expect that not only did he fail to escape, he almost lost his life. And now, his whereabouts had been exposed and he was seriously injured. It seemed that there was no other way. In front of this lord, nothing is impossible. The Chief Pagoda Master's eyes were filled with killing intent. Boom! He took a step forward and instantly landed in front of Qin Feiyong. He raised his arm and slapped toward Qin Feiyong's head. The scene of Qin Feiyong's blood splattering on the spot was already formed in his mind. Is that so? If I want to leave, it can be said that no one in the Forgotten Continent can stop me. The corners of Qin Feiyong's mouth curled up as he disappeared with the Phantom Serpent Emperor and the 5-colored crystal. Bastard! The Chief Pagoda Master was furious. He slammed his palm on the ground, causing the ground to crack. Gong Sunbei frowned and cupped his hands. Sir, please calm down. This subordinate has heard of the treasure he's hiding in. It can't be moved. As long as we guard here, he won't be able to escape. The chief pagoda master took a deep breath and withdrew his arm. He said in a deep voice, Call Lu Xingfeng here. Call him here for what? Gong Sunbei was suspicious. The chief pagoda master said, he was the one who introduced Qin Feiyang to the chief pagoda. He's definitely Qin Feiyang's accomplice. There was a murderous intent in his tone that could not be dispelled. Understood. Chapter 11-12. Bas. After a while, Lu Xingfeng's shadow appeared. Gong Sunbei asked, Where are you now? Lu Xingfeng said, I'm outside tracking that shadow. Gong Sunbei said, Put this matter aside for the time being and come to my place. Okay. I'll be right there. Lu Xingfeng nodded. At the same time, inside the castle, Qin Feiyang had also taken a healing pill and a spirit sea pill, and his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Phantom Snake Emperor was also recuperating. Wolf King, Fatso and the others were gathered together, curiously observing the five-colored crystal. Yan Wei suddenly said, Have you noticed that this divine crystal seems to contain a wisp of divine power? Divine power? Everyone was stunned and carefully sensed it. Soon, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. The divine crystal was colorful, like a gem, extremely dazzling. The divine crystal also emitted a mysterious aura, but if one looked carefully, they would find that this aura was somewhat similar to the aura that Qin Feiyang revealed when he used the divine art. Lu Hong looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, Do you think this is a divine artifact? Divine artifact? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Although I don't know if this is a divine artifact or not, this thing is definitely an incredible treasure. Little Qin Zi, why don't we? Wolf King's eyes glowed green. The implication was obvious, to encourage Qin Feiyang to take the divine crystal. Hearing this, Fatso, Viper, and Dan Wangcai's eyes also rolled. Seeing this, Yan Wei was anxious and shouted, This divine crystal is related to the lives of millions of my clansmen. You can't do this. Old Yan, we understand your feelings. But if this is really a divine artifact, it's too much of a loss for us to just give it away like this. Fatso said. That's right. In terms of value, your million clansmen simply cannot be compared to a divine object. Wolf King nodded. Yan Wei was burning with anxiety. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang with pleading eyes. Ha. Looking at Yan Wei's expression, Fatso and Wolf King looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Fatso was speechless. Old Yan, we were just joking. Why did you take it so seriously? Joking. Yan Wei was stunned. Yeah. Now that we are a family, your clansmen are our clansmen, how can we not save them? Fatso rolled his eyes at him. Yan Wei was stunned. Then he smiled helplessly. He really had to hand it to these people to joke about this kind of thing. Fatso continued solemnly. However, the divine crystals indeed cannot be handed over to Miss Longfeng. Yan Wei was suspicious. Think about it, if we give it to her now, what if the mysterious lady changes her mind? So we have to find her first and exchange it with her face to face. Fatso said. Makes sense. Yan Wei nodded. The mysterious lady was too mysterious. They had to be wary. All right, don't waste time, go into seclusion. Qin Feiyang snatched the five-colored crystal and walked to the altar. He cut his finger and used his blood to open the iron box of the six-word formula. Then, he placed the five-colored crystal inside the iron box. Because there was no place safer than here. The pangolin looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed. Now that we are trapped in the main tower, how can we be in the mood to go into seclusion? Yeah. This is a prison. If no one helps, we can't get out at all. Viper and Dan Wangcai were worried. They never thought that this group of people would be so bold as to snatch something from the main tower master. Isn't this like pulling a tooth from the tiger's mouth? Originally, they thought that Qin Feiyang not only had all kinds of peerless divine pills, but he was also the direct disciple of the main tower master. They thought that following him would definitely be able to reach the peak of life. But they didn't expect that this was a pirate ship. However, Qin Feiyang's face didn't have the slightest bit of worry. Instead, there was a trace of a smile. You can still smile? Do you know what the situation is now? Everyone looked at him with dissatisfaction. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "We'll be fine. You guys can rest assured." Everyone was surprised. The divine crystal is in my hands. The mysterious lady won't let me die. She will definitely find a way to save me. As for that Lu Xingfeng, I can't help but pray for him now. Qin Feiyong joked. The Mu family has used us for so long. It's time for them to pay the price. Lu Hong snorted. Her eyes flashed coldly. In the blink of an eye. Outside, Lu Xingfeng came. Looking at the broken ground in front of him, his eyes were full of surprise. Isn't that the purple gold dragon blood? Could it be that Qin Feiyong has been here? Suddenly, he noticed the purple gold dragon blood in the big pit, and the surprise in his heart grew stronger. Back then, when Qin Feiyong's bloodline returned to its ancestral state, Mu Qing, the Mu family's first ancestor, the second ancestor, and Yiglao were all present. So as Mu Qing's second grandfather, an important figure in the Mu family, of course he would know. Lu Xingfeng. The main tower master jumped up and landed beside Wang Su, looking at Lu Xingfeng. Subordinate is here. Lu Xingfeng shuddered and hurriedly bowed. The main tower master said, I ask you, why did you recommend Ancestor Mu to enter the main tower? How did you get to know him? Why do you ask? And this question, Subordinate has answered before. It's because I saw his talent and felt that he was a talent, so I let him enter the main tower. Lu Xingfeng hurriedly said. He couldn't help but feel nervous. The main tower master suddenly asked this. It definitely wasn't on a whim. Talent? The main tower master was so angry that he laughed and nodded. Yes, he is indeed a talent. He even dared to scheme against me. Who else can be more capable than him? Scheme. Lu Xingfeng's eyes trembled and hurriedly said, Master, did something happen? Don't play dumb with me. The main tower master stepped forward and grabbed Lu Xingfeng's neck. His face looked extremely ferocious as he shouted, Tell me the truth, how many of you are hiding in my main tower? Lu Xingfeng was scared silly. What was going on? Gong Sun Bei suddenly thought of something. He cupped his hands and said, Sir, I suddenly remembered that there was someone called Qin Dai. Back then, he took me to find Qin Feiyong's parents. I think this was also a trap set by them. Hearing this, Lu Xingfeng's face changed greatly. What do you mean? The main tower master frowned. Gong Sun Bei said, I mean the two people I saw shouldn't be Qin Feiyong's biological parents. Damn it! The main tower master was furious and shouted, Then what are you waiting for? Go and catch that Qin Dai for me now. Yes. Gong Sun Bei nodded, opened the portal and walked in. What happened? Lu Xingfeng's mind was in a mess. Why would all of this be exposed out of the blue? Could it be Qin Feiyong betrayed them? But that's not right. If Qin Feiyong really betrayed them, then the main tower master must have known his true identity, and he wouldn't ask so many questions now. However, no matter what the reason was, Mu Qing couldn't be caught by Gong Sun Bei. Qin Dai, your identity has been exposed, run. Lu Xingfeng suddenly roared to the sky. His voice was like a bell, spreading in all directions. His roar reverberated in the air above the main tower. He didn't call out Mu Qing's real name because he was afraid of implicating the Mu family. You guys are indeed in cahoots. The main tower master clenched his hands and slapped Lu Xingfeng's chest. Lu Xingfeng immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out, slamming into the ground with blood gushing out of his mouth. But he didn't escape. And he didn't resist. Because he knew that in front of the main tower master, he had no power to resist at all. As long as Mu Qing could hear his voice, it would be fine. Qin Dai? Identity rage. What does this mean? At this moment, everyone in the tower was alarmed, and their faces were filled with suspicion. At the same time, Pill Tower, in a certain alchemy room. This is the voice of second grandpa. Mu Qing sat at the coffee table in the lounge, drinking tea leisurely. But when he heard Lu Xingfeng's roar, his body trembled, and the teacup in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. Others didn't know what this sentence meant, but he knew very well. He also couldn't figure out why his identity was suddenly exposed. Before he could think about it, He hurriedly opened the portal and entered without looking back. As soon as he left, Gong Sun Bei descended above the pill tower and hollered, "Does anyone know which alchemy room Qin Dai is in?" A disciple asked, "Lord Gong Sun, are you talking about Qin Dai who is very close to Ancestor Mu?" "Yes." Gong Sun Bei nodded. The disciple said, "He seems to be in the first tower. Go ask Pei Yi." Gong Sun Bei turned into a ray of light and entered the first tower at lightning speed. He stood at the bottom of the well and said, "Pei Yi, come out and see me." The stone doors opened one after another, and the disciples of the various alchemy rooms scurried out, staring at Gong Sun Bei in bewilderment. Pei Yi also came out of the first alchemy room and said, "Greetings, Lord." Gong Sun Bei leaped up and landed in front of Pei Yi. He asked, "Which alchemy room is Qin Dai in?" Pei Yi answered truthfully, "I remember that he seems to be in the 9th alchemy room." "Why are you looking for him, Lord?" Gong Sun Bei did not answer. Instead, he glanced at the numbers on the stone doors and took a step forward. He landed in front of the 9th alchemy room and smashed the stone door open. However, the alchemy room was already empty. Gong Sun Bei glanced at the alchemy room and walked into the lounge. He stood in front of the coffee table and looked at the teacup that had fallen onto the ground. He then touched the teapot and his face grew sullen. He immediately opened the portal and left. "Senior brother Pei Yi, what's going on? Is there something wrong with Qin Dai?" Some disciples looked at Pei Yi in puzzlement. "I don't know either." Pei Yi shook his head and stared at the 9th alchemy room with a frown. He had a hunch that tonight would not be peaceful. Gong Sun Bei. He appeared beside the master of the pill tower and immediately said, "Lord, I'm late. The teapot is still warm." He must have heard Lu Xingfeng's voice and fled. Lu Xingfeng heaved a sigh of relief. He could die but Mu Qing could not. Chapter 11:13. Boom. The chief pagoda master released his aura, imprisoning Lu Xingfeng, and then said to the void, "Qin Feiyang, if you want Lu Xingfeng's life, come out now." "Qin Feiyang is really here?" Lu Xingfeng was surprised. What did this little bastard do to expose his identity? However, after waiting for a while, Qin Feiyang did not appear. The chief pagoda master was furious and shouted, "Do you think I don't dare to kill him?" As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a ray of battle chi flew out, like a sharp blade, cutting off Lu Xingfeng's legs on the spot. "Ah!" Lu Xingfeng lay on the ground, screaming in pain, his old face twisted. He looked up at the chief pagoda master and roared, "It's useless, even if you kill me he won't appear, because he doesn't care about my life or death." The chief pagoda master of course did not believe Lu Xingfeng's words, because he had already determined that Lu Xingfeng and Qin Feiyang were in cahoots. Boom! At this time, 3 powerful auras descended above the 4 of them. They were 3 old men. They were over 50 years old, with white hair. But the aura they exuded was unfathomable. If Qin Feiyang was here, he would definitely recognize that these 3 were the guardians of the land of inheritance. One of them looked ordinary, with a scar above his left eye. He was the one who secretly helped Qin Feiyang. Greetings to the 3 ancestors. Seeing the 3 appear, the chief pagoda master, Wang Su, and Gong Sun Bei all bowed. One of the old men glanced at the messy ground and frowned. "What happened? Why is it like this?" The chief pagoda master said truthfully, "The divine crystal was stolen by Qin Feiyang." "What? Qin Feiyang? Why is he in the chief pagoda? And the divine crystal? Haven't you been keeping it with you? How could it be stolen by him?" The 3 were furious. This little bastard stole the divine crystal. At the same time, Lu Xingfeng's face was also full of disbelief. It was obvious. He also knew the secret of the divine crystals. Facing the anger of the 3 old men, the chief tower master was like a child who had done something wrong. He lowered his head and remained silent. "Hurry up and tell me," the old man with the scar above his left eye shouted. Not long ago, a black shadow suddenly broke into the main tower and wanted to snatch the divine crystals. In the end, I drove him away. I thought this matter was over for the time being. After I came here, I took out the divine crystal to check. But I didn't expect that Qin Feiyang had been hiding in the dark all this time and stole it when I wasn't paying attention. The chief tower master said, "Bastard! This is clearly luring the snake out of its hole. You can't even see this. I really don't know what's in your head. The scarred old man shouted angrily. The chief pagoda master's eyes trembled. Ancestors, you can't blame His Excellency for this. It's Qin Feiyong who concealed himself too well. You might not know about his other identity. His other identity is ancestor adoration. And as far as I know, he also has a battle art that can make him invisible. When he snatched the divine crystals, he should have used this battle art. Gong Sunbei said. What did you say? Ancestor admiration is Qin Feiyong. They had heard of it before. The three old men were surprised. Yes. Gong Sunbei nodded. This? The three old men looked at each other. After recovering, the scarred old man asked, What about that black shadow? Did you find him? Gong Sunbei, Wang Su, and I just discussed it. We think that only the upper echelons of our main tower know about the divine crystals. So, we all suspect that there might be a mole among us. The chief tower master said. The scarred old man shouted, Then go investigate. I just asked Gong Sunbei and old Wang to investigate. The chief tower master looked at Gong Sunbei and asked, How was the investigation? Gong Sunbei shook his head and said, We've investigated. Anyone who knows about the divine crystals was in the cave residence at that time. That's impossible. Who else knows about the divine crystals besides the people of our main tower? The chief tower master frowned. Suddenly, he looked at Lu Xingfeng and said in a deep voice, Qin Feiyong and that black shadow should be together. Tell me, who is he? I don't know. Lu Xingfeng shook his head. It seems that you won't cry until you're in the coffin. The chief tower master's eyes were cold. Lu Xingfeng wanted to cry. He really didn't know who that black shadow was? He was also very puzzled. Wait. That black shadow couldn't have been sent by that mysterious woman, right? Thinking of this, he shuddered. That was truly a possibility. After all, only that mysterious madam had the best relationship with Qin Feiyong. The scarred old man pointed at Lu Xingfeng and asked, What's the matter with him? Gong Sunbei said, Ancestor, this person is also Qin Feiyong's accomplice. He was the one who introduced Qin Feiyong to the main tower. Then why are we still keeping him? The scarred old man's eyes flashed with killing intent. He pointed his index finger in the air and battle chi surged at his fingertip. Lu Xingfeng's face was suddenly filled with fear and despair. Was he really going to die? It was not worth it to die like this. Gong Sunbei hurriedly said, Ancestor, wait, we can't kill this person yet. We still need to use him to force Qin Feiyong to submit. The scarred old man said coldly, Qin Feiyong hasn't come out yet. Do you think he's valuable? Finished. Battle chi gushed out from his fingertip and instantly entered between Lu Xingfeng's eyebrows. A bloody hole appeared and blood spurted out like a fountain. With a bang, he fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with hatred. This was hatred towards Qin Feiyong. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyong stealing the divine crystal and exposing everything, he wouldn't have fallen to this point. So he hated. After killing Lu Xingfeng, the scarred old man looked at the chief tower master and the other two and snorted, I don't need to tell you the importance of the divine crystal. So no matter what, you have to get it back for me. Yes. The three of them nodded respectfully. Then the three old men turned around and left. Gong Sunbei looked at the chief tower master and Wang Su and asked, Master Elder Wang, what should we do now? The chief tower master shouted, What else can we do? God here. I don't believe he can hide here forever. I'm not thinking about the divine crystal now. I'm thinking about how, and you, if they know about this, you can imagine how sad they will be. Wang Su sighed. This is a lesson. Let's see if they dare to trust someone so easily in the future. The chief tower master said gloomily. Then he rose into the air and quickly disappeared into the night sky. Wang Su looked at Gong Sunbei and said, You watch carefully. I'll go to the soothing lake. They'll know sooner or later anyway. Why don't we tell them now? Okay. Gong Sunbei nodded. Glancing at the place where Qin Feiyong disappeared, Wang Su sighed and opened a portal to leave. Why did it have to be like this? Gong Sunbei muttered, as if he was talking to himself, but also as if he was asking Qin Feiyong who was in the castle. Swoosh. Qin Feiyong appeared at the bottom of the deep pit. He looked up at Gong Sun Bei and said, I didn't want it to be like this, but there are some things. Just like you following the chief tower master, I have no choice. If it weren't for Yan Wei's clansmen, how could he not want to live in peace? Gong Sun Bei lowered his head and looked at Qin Feiyong. He didn't use his pressure to imprison Qin Feiyong, nor did he attack Qin Feiyong. He just watched quietly. After a while, he sighed deeply and turned his head saying, You can go. Qin Feiyong was surprised. The chief tower master and Wang Su are drowning in anger, but I'm not. You gave young master Hao and Wang Yu those medicinal pills. It's enough to show that you still have feelings for them. Of course, this is only one aspect. Another aspect is that you're the descendant of the Qin Emperor. The Qin Emperor has done a great favor for the Forgotten Continent. Letting you go today can be considered as repaying this favor. Gong Sun Bei said. Qin Feiyong was startled and asked, What favor? A great favor. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a statue of him in the land of inheritance. There's no time to talk about this now. Let's go. I hope you never come back, because the next time we meet, we'll be enemies. I won't show mercy. Gong Sun Bei said. Thank you. Qin Feiyong bowed. This was a person who clearly distinguished kindness and hatred, and was worthy of respect. Immediately, with a thought, Yan Wei came out of the castle. Qin Feiyong whispered something in Yan Wei's ear, and Yan Wei opened a teleportation gate. The two were about to enter the teleportation gate. Gong Sun Bei suddenly said, Wait, I've heard of your name. Can you let me see your true appearance now? Qin Feiyong took out a facial restoration pill and put it into his mouth. His face and figure immediately changed. Very quickly, a handsome face appeared in Gong Sun Bei's line of sight. His facial features were well defined, as if they were carved by a knife. His dark eyes were like black gemstones, without any impurities, looking extremely deep. His 7-foot body was tall and straight like an iron pine, filled with a masculine aura. After so many years, he had long since shed the immaturity and naivety of his youth. He had become more mature and steady. Although he wasn't very handsome, he exuded a unique charm from head to toe, making people unable to help but take a few more glances at him. Gong Sun Bei sized up Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, You really look like the Qin Emperor. Qin Feiyong said, You've seen him? Gong Sun Bei shook his head and said, When he roamed the world, I wasn't born yet. How could I have seen him? I've only seen his statue. Qin Feiyong nodded in realization and didn't stay any longer. He walked into the teleportation gate with Yan Wei. In the blink of an eye, the two disappeared into the teleportation gate. The teleportation gate also quickly disappeared. Sigh! Gong Sun Bei retracted his gaze and looked at the waning moon in the night sky. He let out a weak sigh, then sat cross-legged on the ground, staring intently at the deep pit. He would pretend that Qin Feiyong's departure didn't happen. He would continue to follow orders and guard. At the same time, on the other side, there was a small forest. Behind a small tree, there was a black shadow standing there. He had no aura at all, like a ghost, hiding in the darkness, watching Gong Sun Bei from afar. I originally wanted to take action and rescue Qin Feiyong, but I didn't expect Gong Sun Bei to let him go. Behind the chief pagoda master's back, letting Qin Feiyong go. Gong Sun Bei, what kind of person are you? A moment later. Chapter 11:14. At the same time. Mu Jia. In a certain hall. Mu Jia's lord leaned on the upper seat and looked at Mu Qing, who suddenly appeared. He asked suspiciously, Why did you suddenly come back? Mu Qing said anxiously, Go and save second grandpa. Mu Jia's lord froze. He sat up straight and looked at Mu Qing with a frown. Second grandpa is in danger. Mu Qing roared. What danger? Lord Mu was surprised. I don't know. Just now, I suddenly heard his roar, saying that my identity was exposed and told me to run away immediately. If it wasn't for an emergency, he definitely wouldn't have done this. Hurry up and think of a way. Second grandpa must be in danger now. Mu Qing urged, her heart burning with anxiety. Lord Mu suddenly got up. His face was gloomy like water. He said in a deep voice. Let's go and discuss this matter with the ancestors. Mu Qing nodded. The two immediately left the hall in a hurry. Calm Heart Lake. No way. How could he be Qin Feiyang? Wang Su has also told young Master Hao and Wang Yuer about Qin Feiyang's identity and the robbery of the divine crystal. Both of them were in disbelief and couldn't accept this fact. Wang Su looked at the two and sighed. This is what he admitted himself. He is the descendant of the Qin Emperor and has the power of the purple gold dragon blood. Impossible. I don't believe it. I have to ask him face to face. Wang Yuer shook her head frantically and opened the portal. Wang Su grabbed Wang Yuer and said angrily. Grandpa will lie to you again? No. I must ask him to answer me personally. Wang Yuer broke away and ran in without looking back. I don't believe it either. Young Master Hao shook his head and also ran into the portal. Sigh. What a sin. Wang Su sighed deeply and helplessly followed. At the same moment, Long Feng Pavilion. Although it was late at night, it was still lively and noisy. Inside the room of the Miss of Long Feng Pavilion. Whoosh. Suddenly, two figures appeared out of thin air. One of them looked to be in his 20s. His body was covered in blood, his face was pale, and his eyes were weak. It was Qin Feiyang. The person beside him was naturally Yan Wei. Young Master Qin's ability did not disappoint us. With regards to Qin Feiyang's arrival, the young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house was not the least bit surprised. She was still sitting behind the curtain, and her tone carried a hint of admiration. Qin Feiyang asked, "Did you arrange the Black Shadow?" "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion replied. "Who is he?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No comment." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. "Wang." But before she could finish speaking, the image crystal in her bosom rang. She took out the image crystal, and a black-robed old man appeared. However, Qin Feiyang couldn't see the old man's face clearly because of the curtain. "Teacher." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house bowed. The old man in black said, "Qin Feiyang has already escaped from the main tower. It was Gong Sun Bei who let him go." "Gong Sun Bei?" The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house was surprised and immediately said, "Qin Feiyang is with me now." "Who is it?" Hearing their conversation, Qin Feiyang could no longer hold it in and rushed toward the curtain. He even knew that Gong Sun Bei had let him go. This was enough to prove that this person had been hiding in the dark. However, when he opened the curtain, the shadow had already dissipated. The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house was still wearing a veil, and only a pair of ethereal eyes could be seen. The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house glanced at Qin Feiyang, put away the image crystal, stretched out her jade-like arm, and said, "Give me the divine crystal." Yan Wei stepped in front of Qin Feiyang and looked at the young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house. "No, you must let my clansmen go first." The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at Yan Wei and said, "Your clansmen are very safe now." Yan Wei sneered and said, "Then how do I know that you won't go back on your word?" The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house looked a little displeased and said, "We still have this bit of integrity." "Don't you think it's ridiculous for people like us to talk about integrity?" Yan Wei smiled obsequiously. The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house raised her eyebrows. Her gaze turned and landed on Qin Feiyang. She asked, "Are you going to give it to me or not?" Qin Feiyang said, "Before I see Yan Wei's clansmen, I can't give it to you." The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "You are really a cautious person." "I have to be cautious when facing you," Qin Feiyang said. The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said helplessly, "All right, you guys stay in the Dragon Phoenix house first. I will arrange for you to meet." "Stay here?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Right now, the people of the main tower were looking for him everywhere. What if he was discovered? The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house said, "Don't worry, as long as you don't run around, there is no place safer than here. Because all the staff here are my trusted aides." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "All right, make the arrangements as soon as possible, don't make me wait too long." The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded and said loudly, "Pang Su, come here for a moment." Not long later, a slightly plump middle-aged man pushed open the door and entered the room. When he saw Qin Feiyang and Pang Su, his expression froze. "Immediately arrange a room for young Master Qin. Remember, you are not allowed to tell anyone that he is in our Dragon Phoenix house." The young miss of the Dragon Phoenix house instructed. "Yes." Pang Su replied respectfully, then looked at Qin Feiyong, cupped his hands and smiled. "Young Master Qin, nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you." Qin Feiyong also cupped his hands and replied politely. Then, Pang Su then opened the teleportation gate, retreated to the side, and extended his hand. "Young Master, please." Qin Feiyong and Yen Wei walked in. The next moment, they appeared in a private room with a separate dining room, tea room, bedroom, and washroom. Entering this private room through the teleportation gate was also for safety reasons. After all, there were a lot of people living in the Dragon Phoenix house, and there were also a lot of people drinking and chatting in the lobby. Pang Su laughed. This room is usually used by the young miss to entertain especially important guests. It is never open to the public, so young master can stay here at ease. Especially important? Qin Feiyong was startled and asked curiously, "How important is it?" Pang Su was startled and then shook his head. "The young miss has never told us about her private matters, so I don't know how important it is." Qin Feiyong said, "How many years have you followed your young miss?" "It's been too long, I can't remember clearly." "All right, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." "Young master, please help yourself." Pang Su cupped his hands and laughed. "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. After Pang Su left, Yen Wei said worriedly, "I'm really worried that they will play tricks." Qin Feiyong said, "As long as the divine crystal is in my hands, they won't dare to go against me." Seeing that Yen Wei was still worried, Qin Feiyong patted his shoulder again and laughed. "Don't worry, no matter what, I will save your clansmen. Stay here and watch. I'm going to take a bath." Yen Wei nodded. Qin Feiyong turned around and entered the washroom. Not long after, the sound of running water could be heard. Yen Wei walked to the window and opened it a little, paying close attention to the situation outside. At the same time, "Ancestor Mu, come out quickly." Main tower. Beside the deep pit. Young Master Hao roared. Wang Yue was also sobbing. Looking at the two of them in pain, Wang Su felt uncomfortable and said angrily, "Qin Feiyong, if you are still a man, come out and say it clearly." Gong Sun Bei glanced at the three of them and sighed, saying in a low voice, "Elder Wang, take them back." Wang Su said helplessly, "Look at them now, do they look like they will leave?" Shua! Suddenly, the main tower master descended above the deep pit and glared at Gong Sun Bei, shouting, "How are you guarding?" Gong Sun Bei was stunned and stood up suspiciously. "Sir, why do you say that?" Wang Su also looked at the main tower master in confusion. The main tower master said gloomily, "I just received news that Qin Feiyong is at Longfeng Pavilion." Longfeng Pavilion. Gong Sun Bei was shocked and hurriedly said, "Impossible, this subordinate has been guarding here and didn't see him come out." "Is that so?" the main tower master asked. Obviously, he was beginning to suspect Gong Sun Bei. "It's true." "How would this subordinate dare to disobey Sir's orders?" Gong Sun Bei hurriedly said, his forehead covered in cold sweat. The main tower master said in a low voice, "Then why is he at Longfeng Pavilion? You were here alone just now. You have to give this seat a reasonable explanation, right?" Gong Sun Bei's gaze trembled as he said anxiously, "Sir, this subordinate really doesn't know." The main tower master looked at him deeply and opened a teleportation gate. "You better not let me find out that you are the one behind this. Otherwise, even if you kneel down and repent, I won't let you off. Let's go, follow me to Longfeng Pavilion." After saying that, he stepped into the teleportation gate. Gong Sun Bei hurriedly followed. Wang Yue and young Master Hao looked at each other, and also quickly rushed into the teleportation gate. Sigh. Wang Su sighed and also followed in. Longfeng Pavilion. Inside the pavilion, Yen Wei was still standing in front of the window, paying attention to the situation outside, but suddenly a strong sense of uneasiness emerged in his heart. This uneasiness even lingered. "What's going on?" His eyes were filled with surprise. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura descended. His body trembled as he hurriedly turned around to look. He saw that the main tower master had actually descended into the room out of thin air. How is this possible? His expression changed as he roared, "Qin Feiyong, run! Run!" The main tower master smiled coldly as his pressure roared out, immediately imprisoning Yen Wei. Moreover, That pressure also enveloped the entire Long Feng Pavilion. In an instant, everyone in the Long Feng Pavilion was imprisoned, including Qin Feiyang and the miss of the Long Feng Pavilion. At the same time, young Master Hao and the others also appeared in the room one after another. Where is he? Seeing that there was only Yan Wei in the room and no Qin Feiyang, they couldn't help but frown. But in the next moment, they all looked towards the bathroom because there was the sound of running water coming out from the bathroom. The main Tower Master shouted, "Gong Sun Bei, go and drag him out for me." "No need, put away your pressure, I will come out myself." Qin Feiyang's voice sounded in the bathroom, bringing with it a haze that couldn't be dispelled. The main Tower Master glanced at the bathroom gloomily, and the pressure relaxed slightly. Chapter 11:15. Soon, the door to the washroom slowly opened. Qin Feiyang, who was wearing a pure white robe, slowly walked out. "It's really Qin Feiyang." Wang Yue and young Master Hao looked at Qin Feiyang with trembling eyes. Although this was the first time they saw Qin Feiyang in person, they had seen Qin Feiyang's appearance before. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two, took a deep breath, and walked toward Yan Wei. "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to leave immediately?" Gong Sun Bei's angry voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. "I had something I had to do, but I don't understand. How did you know I was in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion?" Qin Feiyang thought. "I don't know either. The Chief Tower Master suddenly found me and said you were in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. He was already suspecting me. I let you go." Gong Sun Bei said telepathically. "I'm sorry. I dragged you into this." Qin Feiyang apologized secretly. Gong Sun Bei sighed. "It's meaningless to say this now. Do you remember what I told you before you left? The next time we meet, we'll be enemies." Qin Feiyang fell silent. When he walked to Yan Wei shouted, "Didn't I tell you to run?" As long as Qin Feiyang entered the castle, the Chief Tower Master wouldn't be able to do anything to him. "If I run, what will you do? You'll be killed mercilessly like Lu Xingfeng." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Why are you thinking about me? It doesn't matter if I'm killed, but nothing can happen to you." Yan Wei looked at him helplessly. He was both touched and angry. "I don't have the habit of leaving my companions and escaping alone." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He turned to the Chief Tower Master and asked, "How did you know I was here?" The Chief Tower Master said, "This king is also very puzzled. How did you manage to escape from under Gong Sun Bei's nose?" "Hehe. That's simple. You all thought that my spatial divine item was unable to move. However, that was merely an illusion." Qin Feiyang sneered. It can move." The Chief Pagoda Master was bewildered. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. This way, Gong Sun Bei was cleared of suspicion. Gong Sun Bei was also very cooperative and said in realization, "So that's how it is. I was wondering why you suddenly appeared in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion." Qin Feiyang smiled as he looked at the Chief Tower Master and said, "Can you answer my question now?" Chief Pagoda Master didn't answer. Instead he said, "Gong Sun Bei, go and capture the young lady of Dragon Phoenix House for me." "Yes." Gong Sun Bei nodded, turned around and left. "You are Ancestor Mu, and also Qin Feiyang?" Wang Yue and young Master Hao sized up Qin Feiyang, still somewhat unable to accept it. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. He had to face what he had to face. He couldn't run away or hide. "Why did you use us?" Young Master Hao roared. "Because of your identity. Only by using you can I get close to the Chief Tower Master faster, gain his trust, and obtain the divine crystal." Qin Feiyang said. "You bastard." Young Master Hao was furious as he stepped forward and slapped Qin Feiyang's face. A trace of purple gold dragon blood flowed out from the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth. "It's fine if you deceive me, but you actually deceived my sister's feelings. You are simply a heartless beast." Young Master Hao roared as he kicked Qin Feiyang to the ground and punched and kicked him. "Bastard. Can't you endure it? Fight back." Young Master Hao went crazy. He had never trusted a person so much. It could even be said that he had poured his heart out, but he didn't expect that the other party was only using him? Unbearable. "Why are you so cruel? Even if you don't like me, you don't have to treat me like this." Wang Yue looked at Qin Feiyang and muttered to herself, her heart feeling like it was being cut by a knife. Dada. Accompanied by a series of footsteps, Gong Sunbei walked in with the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Looking at the Chief Tower Master and Wang Su, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's face turned pale. At the same time, seeing the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion being brought in, young Master Hao's expression changed slightly. He immediately stopped and looked at the Chief Tower Master saying, "Father, she is at most protecting Qin Feiyong. Don't hurt her." Protect? How? You are too stupid. She and Qin Feiyong were originally in cahoots. The Chief Tower Master said. This? Young Master Hao was stunned. He turned to look at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and asked, "Is this true?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded. Young Master Hao's body shook violently as he said, "In that case, you are also using me?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion nodded again. "Damn it, damn it, damn it!" Young Master Hao roared again and again, his eyes filled with resentment. Qin Feiyong also got up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and said gloomily, "I just stayed here, and they came looking for me. Is this the safety you mentioned?" If he didn't see that this woman was also caught, he would have suspected that this woman was the one who leaked the news. "I can't figure it out either." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head. "Of course you can't figure it out." The Chief Tower Master smiled coldly and shouted, "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, a slightly plump middle-aged man strode into the room. "It's you." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion narrowed her eyes. The person who came was Pang Su. Qin Feiyong was also shocked. He never thought that it would be this person. Pang Su looked at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and Qin Feiyong and smiled. "Are you surprised?" "Why? Why did you betray me?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said angrily. Pang Su chuckled. "You don't think that I'm really Pang Su, do you?" Finished speaking, Pang Su took out a facial restoration pill and threw it into his mouth. His appearance immediately changed. Very soon, a thin middle-aged man appeared in front of everyone. "It's actually him." Gong Sunbei's pupils contracted. "You know him?" Qin Feiyong transmitted. "Yes. He is an oracle of my oracle hall. But he went missing a long time ago. I thought that he might have been killed outside, but I didn't expect him to disguise himself as Pang Su and lurk beside the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. I think this should have been arranged by the Chief Tower Master." Gong Sunbei thought. Qin Feiyong said, "Even you don't know, it seems that the Chief Tower Master doesn't trust you that much." Gong Sunbei smiled bitterly, looking at the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Seeing Pang Su turn into another stranger, her eyes almost popped out as she said angrily, "If you're not Pang Su, then who are you? Where did the real Pang Su go?" The middle-aged man said, "I'm the Oracle of the Chief Tower. The Chief Tower Master asked me to monitor you. As for the real Pang Su, he's already dead." "What?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion trembled and asked, "When did this happen?" "A long time ago. One day, the Chief Tower Master came to find me and said that he was worried about young Master Hao and asked me to investigate you. But your cautiousness far exceeded our expectations. After lurking around you for so long, we still couldn't find out your origin. It's even difficult to get close to you. But it doesn't matter now. As long as you fall into our hands, we're not afraid that you won't say anything." The middle-aged man sneered. "So that's how it is." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion came to a realization. She looked at the Chief Tower Master and mocked. "You are indeed a treacherous old fox. Not everyone is as innocent as Hao. However, I have always been very curious. Hao is so obsessed with you. What do you look like?" The Chief Tower Master stepped forward and grabbed the veil on the young lady's face, preparing to tear it off. Swish! But at this moment, above the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, a terrifying emperor's might suddenly appeared. Following closely, a black shadow appeared. He raised his hand and pointed in the air. A resplendent battle chi, carrying the power to destroy the world, rushed towards the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion below. "Not good." The Chief Tower Master's expression changed. Battle chi rolled out and condensed into a battle chi barrier, enveloping everyone inside. Boom! Almost in the next moment, the battle chi blasted into the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and the entire Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was instantly razed to the ground. As for the people in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, other than Qin Feiyong and a few others, none of them were spared. They died tragically on the spot, and not even their bones were left. Who? After Wang Su reacted, he immediately raised his head to look at the sky. When he saw the black shadow, a cold light surged in his old eyes. The black shadow was wearing a mask, so his true appearance could not be seen. However, his pair of dark eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Swish! He soared into the sky and stood in the clouds. With a wave of his hand, his battle chi surged crazily, turning into a huge wave that covered the sky above the entire divine city. What does he want to do? Many people in the city were alarmed. They ran to the streets and looked at the black shadow in surprise. The chief tower master and the others were also puzzled. Destroy! Suddenly, the black figure let out a sonorous roar, and the surging battle chi in the clouds suddenly poured down in torrents. Not good. He wants to destroy the divine city. Wang Su's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly rushed into the sky, his aura erupting. He was also a 9-star combat emperor. He waved his arm, and the invisible aura rushed into the sky, turning into a barrier above the city, blocking the surging battle chi. However, the black shadow's strength was not lower than his. The battle chi crazily fell. Wang Su's face gradually turned pale, and even a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, Gong Sunbei hurriedly looked at the chief tower master and shouted, "My lord, Elder Wang can't stop him alone. Quickly go and help. You watch over them. If you let them escape again, I'll hold you responsible." The chief tower master glanced at Elder Wang and said to Gong Sunbei. Then, he turned into a stream of light and tore through the battle chi, heading straight for the black shadow. Now that we're enemies, don't blame me. Gong Sunbei secretly transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyong. Then, he released his aura and firmly imprisoned the three of them. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at the black shadow worriedly. She suddenly turned her head to look at Gong Sunbei and sneered, "You can't stop us." Gong Sunbei was surprised. His aura did not imprison her? Boom! The next moment, a mighty emperor aura rushed out of the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Her black hair fluttered in the sky, and her pale golden dress rustled. She was like an ice fairy that had descended to the world. Her entire body emitted a shocking cold current. What? An 8-star combat emperor? Gong Sunbei was shocked. Chapter 11:16. While Gong Sunbei was distracted, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion raised her arm and slapped Gong Sunbei's chest with all her might. Puh! Gong Sunbei spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Run! The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shouted. Yan Wei immediately opened a portal. Don't even think about leaving. Gong Sunbei's eyes were like lightning. He stepped into the void and stabilized his body before shooting toward Qin Feiyong and Yan Wei. The next time they met, they would be enemies. He was not joking. However, at this moment, the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion stepped in front of Qin Feiyong and Gong Sunbei. Battle chi surged from her palm as she slapped toward Gong Sunbei. Humph! I let you succeed just now because I was not prepared. In terms of strength, you are too weak. Gong Sunbei stepped forward as his emperor's aura erupted and shook the sky. He is also an 8-star combat emperor. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's pupils contracted. Without turning her head, she shouted at Qin Feiyong and Gong Sunbei. After I escape, I will find you. Run! Yan Wei grabbed Qin Feiyong and rushed toward the portal. However, at this moment, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the middle-aged man who had disguised himself as Pang Su. He rushed over like lightning and smashed the portal with one punch. Damn it! Yan Wei cursed in his heart. You want to leave? Don't you have to ask for my opinion? The middle-aged man looked down at Qin Feiyong and Gong Sunbei. His aura was firmly locked onto the two of them, and his eyes were full of disdain. Yan Wei stared at the middle-aged man and said, He is a 4-star combat emperor. I am not his match, but I can hold him back. Run. Today, none of you can leave. However, Wang Yuer also stepped forward and stood behind Qin Feiyong. Her eyes no longer had the affection for Qin Feiyong, only coldness. Her aura also carried a strong emperor's aura. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Wang Yuer and asked, "Have you made a breakthrough?" Wang Yuer said, "Thanks to you, not only did I break through, but I also opened the 7th level of the Gate of Potential." "That's good," Qin Feiyang muttered. This way, the guilt in his heart lessened a little. Immediately after, he decisively brought Yan Wei to the castle. "Oh no!" The middle-aged man's face changed, and he immediately released his perception. But how could he sense the existence of the ancient castle with his little bit of cultivation? In the meantime, inside the castle, Yan Wei looked at Qin Feiyang and said anxiously, "The castle can't be moved. Hiding here won't be of any use at all." "Have you forgotten what I said to the Chief Tower Master? I told him that the castle can move, so as long as we don't do anything now, they will leave sooner or later." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Yeah." Yan Wei was startled for a moment, then scratched his head and laughed dryly. "You're still the smart one, leaving a way out early on." Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. "I said that not to leave a way out, but to help Gongsun Bei clear his suspicions. This was purely a coincidence." "That's still very impressive." Yan Wei laughed. Outside, after Qin Feiyang escaped into the castle, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House did not continue to fight and immediately thought of a way to escape. However, Gongsun Bei's true strength was not inferior to hers at all. She simply could not find a chance to escape. "What should I do? Do I have to expose my true cultivation? But once my true cultivation is exposed, my identity will also be exposed." Seeing this, the Black Shadow was hesitant and anxious. Shwa! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang appeared on the roof of a house below, looked at the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, and shouted, "Come down quickly!" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House's eyes lit up. She pushed Gongsun Bei back with a palm, and then rushed towards Qin Feiyang like lightning. Gongsun Bei's face darkened as he quickly chased after her. At the same time, the middle-aged man who pretended to be Pang Su also rushed towards Qin Feiyang, the killing intent in his eyes undisguised. "You're really not afraid of death?" Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with ridicule. Although he did not understand the personality of the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, anyone would be angry when encountering such a thing. If the middle-aged man could stay obediently, he might be able to keep his life and live a carefree life for a while. But now, he actually wanted to come down and kill him? Wasn't this walking into a trap? As expected, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House's eyes turned cold as she said coldly, "I was just worried that I wouldn't be able to find a chance to kill you." As she spoke, she waved her jade-like hand and her battle chi surged, turning into a huge wave that roared towards the middle-aged man. "Hurry up and leave!" Gongsun Bei shouted. Hearing Gongsun Bei's reminder, the middle-aged man raised his head and immediately turned around to flee. However, the difference in cultivation between him and the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House was too great. In less than 3 breaths, the battle chi roared and engulfed him. Accompanied by a shrill scream, he died on the spot. Swoosh! Following closely, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House landed beside Qin Feiyang without looking back. "Take care." Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at young Master Hao and Wang Yuer in the sky, muttered to himself, and then brought the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House into the castle. "Damn it. Immediately seal off the entire city, we must not let them escape." Young Master Hao roared hysterically. Gongsun Bei sighed. "He has entered the castle, even if we seal off the entire city, it will be useless." Young Master Hao said angrily, "Then are we going to let them leave just like that?" Gongsun Bei sighed helplessly. Indeed, it was as Qin Feiyang had said when he was in the main tower. If he wanted to leave, no one in the Forgotten Continent could stop him. At the same time, seeing that the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House had safely escaped, the Black Shadow in the clouds also heaved a sigh of relief. Then with a palm strike, the Chief Tower Master turned around and flew away. The Chief Tower Master's eyes were gloomy as he chased after him relentlessly. Qin Feiyang had escaped. If the Black Shadow was allowed to escape, then it would be impossible to snatch the Divine Crystal. After the Black Shadow escaped, the battle chi tide also dissipated. "It's too dangerous here. You guys go back immediately. Gongsun Bei, quickly follow me to support the Chief Tower Master." Wang Su warned the two of them, and also chased after the Black Shadow. "Quickly go back. The matters here are no longer something you can interfere in." Gong Sun Bei flew in front of young Master Hao and Wang Su, patted their shoulders, and chased after them like lightning. Qin Feiyong, I will definitely not let you off. Young Master Hao looked at the backs of Gong Sun Bei and the others, then lowered his head and swept his gaze over the roof where Qin Feiyong had disappeared. He clenched his hands together and muttered to himself with a murderous aura. Wang Yuer did not say a word, but her face was full of frost. She opened the teleportation door and walked in without looking back. Wait for me, sister. Seeing this, young Master Hao hurriedly chased after her. What's going on? Why is Qin Feiyong in the Divine City? And that miss of the Dragon Phoenix House, why is she together with Qin Feiyong? Who's that black shadow? He's actually so strong that even the Chief Tower Master and Wang Su can't stop him? After the few of them left, the people in the city below immediately began to discuss. Inside the ancient castle. This is that ancient castle? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House curiously sized up the ancient castle. At the same time, Fatso and the others, as well as Wolf King and the other beasts, also looked at the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House curiously, thinking in their hearts, what kind of face would be under this veil? Suddenly, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House seemed to have thought of something. She turned to look at Qin Feiyong and said, I'm a little worried about teacher. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, a 9-star war emperor, what's there to worry about? Teacher's strength is very strong, but we can't expose his identity yet. Why don't we go and take a look? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said. Follow. Do you want to die? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. It wasn't easy for him to escape, so he didn't want to throw himself into a trap again. Moreover, he didn't care about that black shadow at all. What he cared about was Yen Wei's clansmen. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House raised her eyebrows and suddenly landed in front of Lu Hong. She grabbed Lu Hong's neck and looked at Qin Feiyong. If you don't go, I'll kill her. Fatso and the others immediately stood up and glared at her. Qin Feiyong's face darkened slightly as he said, Don't forget who saved you just now. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said, You saved me. I'm very grateful to you, but I have to go. Qin Feiyong said, If you want to go, go by yourself. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House shook her head and said, No, you have to go with me. If anything happens, with this ancient castle, we won't fall into a dead situation. Woman, why are you so unreasonable? Why should little Qin Zi accompany you to take the risk? Who are you to him? Wolf King and Fatso said unhappily. Who am I to him? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House was silent for a while before coldly snorting. According to seniority, he has to call me ancestor. What? Ancestor? Everyone was stunned. Qin Feiyong was also caught off guard. Seniority? Ancestor? What was this? Was there water in her brain? I'll ask you one last time, are you going or not? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House raised her eyebrows, and with a slight force from her 5 fingers, Lu Hong's face immediately turned pale. Qin Feiyong hurriedly waved his hand and said, I'll go, don't hurt her. Looks like you care about her quite a bit. The miss of the Dragon Phoenix House laughed mockingly and let go of Lu Hong. Fuck your sister, get out. Qin Feiyong immediately turned hostile, and with a wave of his hand, he threw the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House out of the castle. On the roof outside, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House looked around in shock. The crowd on the surrounding streets also stared blankly at the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House who had suddenly appeared. Quickly inform the main tower that the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House has appeared again. Suddenly, someone roared. Hearing the roar, the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House suddenly came back to her senses. Bastard, you actually dared to trick me. She clenched her fists, and a hint of anger flashed across her eyes as she disappeared into an alley like lightning. The people on the streets also swarmed towards the alley. However, when they rushed into the alley, there was no trace of the miss of the Dragon Phoenix House. Are you all right? Inside the castle, Qin Feiyong looked at Lu Hong with concern. I'm fine. Lu Hong coughed a few times and waved his hand. Fatso coldly snorted. This stinking woman, she's not a good person either. Why don't you look at her cultivation? How could an 8-star war emperor be a kind person? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at Fatso, and then said, However, her cultivation really scared me. Yeah. No one would have thought that she would be so strong. Fatso nodded and asked, Then what should we do next? There's definitely no place for us in the Forgotten Continent anymore. Fatso said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, We'll make a plan after we save Yan Wei's clansmen, and there's still a very important problem right now. What problem? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong looked at Yan Wei and asked, After saving your clansmen, where are you going to settle them? That is indeed a problem. After all, it's not just 1 or 2 people, it's more than 1 million people. A normal place can't accommodate them. Fatso nodded. Yan Wei also fell into deep thought. Think about it yourself. Chapter 11:17. Although the outside world was very chaotic right now, Qin Feiyong's Sea of Qi had already recovered after this period of time. His injuries were almost healed. If he encountered danger, he could protect himself. After appearing on the roof, he immediately opened the portal. Look, isn't that Qin Feiyong? Yes, it's him. His appearance is exactly the same as the legendary Qin Feiyong. Stop him. Yes, as long as we can catch him, we will definitely get a big reward. Those who were looking for the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house also noticed Qin Feiyong at the first moment. They immediately swarmed toward Qin Feiyong as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Am I that easy to catch? Qin Feiyong was helpless. These people were too naive, right? Boom. Just as he was about to enter the portal, a thunderous sound suddenly rang out in the sky above the West City. Moreover, at the same time, 3 terrifying auras spread out from there, shaking the heavens. What's going on? Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at the West City in surprise. He felt that the 3 auras had even surpassed a 9-star combat emperor. It's a fake god. Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. There were 3 fake gods hiding in the divine city? If that was the case, wouldn't that Black Shadow and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house be in trouble? What does it have to do with me? You really have nothing better to do. Qin Feiyong shook his head and turned to step into the portal. Qin Feiyong, give me your life. However, at this moment, an angry roar sounded, followed by a battle chi. The portal in front of Qin Feiyong was instantly shattered. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and looked up. The corners of his mouth lifted as he said with a smile, You dare to come here to die? He saw a young man in purple standing in the sky. He was tall and had an extraordinary appearance, but his face was full of arrogance. It was Nie Xiaoyong, who was slapped in the face by Fatso at the Sword Peak. Courting death? Nie Xiaoyong smiled disdainfully and said, In the past, I was afraid of you because you were the Chief Tower Master's personal disciple. But now, you are just a rat crossing the street. You talk too much. Qin Feiyong's eyes turned cold. His aura suddenly erupted, and he turned into a stream of light that shot towards Nie Xiaoyong. However, not only was Nie Xiaoyong not afraid, his face was full of ridicule. Qin Feiyong frowned. This person was only a 3-star battle saint, yet he dared to act so fearlessly in front of him? Suddenly, a strong sense of unease welled up in his heart. At the same time, amidst the crowd below, a white figure dashed out and landed behind Qin Feiyong like a bolt of lightning. A fist landed on Qin Feiyong's back. Boom! In the nick of time, Qin Feiyong activated the battle formula, but he was still sent flying. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and like a meteor, he smashed into the street below. With a loud bang, crushed stones flew in all directions, and a deep pit appeared. Those who were chasing Qin Feiyong all stopped and looked at the white figure. It was a youth in white. He was about 25 or 26 years old, and he was about 1.8 meters tall. He was tall and straight like a pine tree. His thick black hair fluttered in the wind, and his dark eyes shone brightly like the stars in the sky. No, he was like a shining star, dazzling and eye-catching. Who is he? Why is his aura so strong? And with his speed, even Qin Feiyong couldn't react in time? Everyone was shocked. He seems familiar? All right, I remember now. He is the eldest son of the King Kong tribe's chief, Nie Zhan. Nie Zhan. It is said that he is one of the 3 kings of the Saint Peak. Even the Peak Master of the Saint Peak wants to take him as a disciple. The crowd instantly boiled over. Whether it was the 3 kings of the Saint Peak or the 3 kings of the Saint Tower, they were all heaven's favored children of the Central Divine Kingdom. Nie Zhan. Inside the deep pit, Qin Feiyong slowly got up and raised his head to look at Nie Zhan. The killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. If he hadn't activated the battle formula in time, Nie Zhan's punch would have killed him. Nie Zhan stood high up in the sky like a sovereign king looking down at Qin Feiyong, and he said in an overbearing manner, "I've heard of your great name since long ago, but I've never had the chance to meet you personally. It's truly unfortunate." Qin Feiyong sneered. "If I were still Ancestor Mu, would you dare to talk to me like this? The point is, you are not Ancestor Mu now, but Qin Feiyong." Nie Zhan said. "Can this change your character of bullying the weak and fearing the strong? What heaven's favored child? I think it is a joke." Qin Feiyong smiled disdainfully. Nie Zhan's face darkened and he said, "Whether it is a joke or not, you will know when you see my strength." Boom. After that, his oppressive aura completely erupted as he pounced towards Qin Feiyong with an earth-shattering force. "To be honest, I really don't take your strength seriously." Qin Feiyong raised the corner of his mouth. He flew up 90,000 miles and stood at the top of the clouds. His whole body exuded a mighty dragon's aura. Nie Zhan was surprised. "I will let you see what is called heaven-defying combat strength. The Emperor of 9 and 5. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly and arrogantly. The wind in the sky suddenly blew and dark clouds covered the sky. The next moment, a purple-gold divine light tore through the clouds and descended from the sky. A statue appeared in the blink of an eye. The statue stood above Qin Feiyong's head. Its mighty divine aura enveloped all directions. The people in the city below felt an indescribable fear in their hearts. There were even some people who couldn't help but kneel on the ground and worship. "This is..." In the distance, the chief tower master and the others also stopped in the void. They turned their heads and looked at Qin Feiyong and the statue. Their faces were full of horror. It was actually a divine aura. Gong Sunbei said, "My lord, I seem to have heard you say that the Qin Emperor created a divine art." "Yes, he created the divine dragon art." Qin Feiyong is now using the third move of the divine dragon art, the Emperor of 9 and 5. The chief tower master said in a deep voice. "Not only does he have the power of the purple gold dragon blood, but he also has the Qin Emperor's self-created divine art. Could he be the reincarnation of the Qin Emperor?" Gong Sunbei's heart trembled. Qin Feiyong's performance was far beyond his expectations. The chief tower master suddenly shouted, "All divine envoys, listen to my order. Go to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately and kill Qin Feiyong." His voice was like a bell that resounded through the sky. For a moment, streaks of light soared into the sky, carrying boundless killing intent as they shot towards Qin Feiyong's location. Qin Feiyong also heard the chief tower master's voice, but he didn't care at all. He looked at Nie Zhan and said with a smile, "I don't have any hobbies, but I like to trample on the dignity of elites like you. Kneel down." Words were the law. The Emperor's chi turned into a torrent and surged towards Nie Zhan. Plop. Nie Xiaoyong, who was next to Nie Zhan, immediately knelt down in the void. His body trembled and his heart was filled with fear. Nie Zhan glanced at Nie Xiaoyong, then looked up at Qin Feiyong and said coldly, "Are you kidding me? Do you have the ability to make me kneel down?" He suddenly waved his hands, and his battle chi surged. It transformed into an enormous golden blade that carried a world-destroying sharpness as it furiously slashed out. This was a perfect battle art. An ant wants to compete with the sun and the moon? Dang! Qin Feiyong was like a fiend god, domineering and domineering. As he waved his hand, the statue raised the broken sword in its hand and slashed in the air. A purple-gold sword chi pierced through the sky and collided with the giant blade. It was like a collision between two comets. A destructive storm appeared out of nowhere and swept in all directions. In the city below, houses collapsed one after another. Countless people were swept up by the storm and torn into pieces. Blood dyed the void and the earth red. Wails of agony could be heard everywhere. It was like hell. Puff. At the same time, Qin Feiyong and Nie Zhan were also severely injured and kept retreating. Blood gushed out from their mouths. "Very powerful," Qin Feiyong mumbled in shock. Previously, the inner demons, under the enhancement of the kill art, relied on the cultivation of a 4-star combat emperor to suppress the 8-star combat emperor chief of the divine python tribe. Now, relying on the cultivation of a 4-star combat saint, it was still too difficult for him to suppress a 9-star combat saint. After all, not only was there a huge difference in cultivation between him and Niezhan, but Niezhan also mastered a perfect battle art. However, Niezhan was even more incredulous. With the cultivation of a 4-star combat saint, he was able to fight him to a draw? This was hard for him to accept. Kneel down! Qin Feiyong roared again. His words carried a great majesty. The emperor's aura of the statue rushed towards Niezhan again. Plop! Niezhan's body trembled and he immediately knelt down in the void uncontrollably. This kneel made him feel as if he was struck by lightning. His head was buzzing. As one of the 3 kings of the Saint Peak, he actually knelt down in front of a 4-star combat saint. How could he maintain his position in the main tower in the future? This was a great humiliation, a great humiliation. But at the same time, he had to admit that this was the true power that defied the heavens. He would never be able to compare to it. He knelt down. Too shocking. Niezhan, a 9-star combat emperor, is actually not a match for Qin Feiyong. The people in the city below were all in a daze, full of shock and fear. Too powerful. This could no longer be described as a demon. This person was a pervert, a monster. Does it feel good? Not to mention you, even if the 6 kings of the main tower's holy ground came out together, I might not even care. This time, it was Qin Feiyong's turn to look down on Niezhan. This was his capital. I'm not convinced. Niezhan stared at Qin Feiyong coldly and suddenly roared hysterically. Bang! An even more terrifying aura surged out from his body. Following closely, his skin turned into a dazzling golden color at a speed visible to the naked eye. That's the invincible Vajra body. It's the inherited battle skill of the Vajra tribe. Someone below exclaimed. Invincible Vajra body? Qin Feiyong was stunned as he sized up Niezhan. At first glance, this person's body seemed to be cast from gold. It was filled with a hard texture. Moreover, one could vaguely sense that there was an explosive power hidden in this person's body. I heard that once the people of the Vajra tribe activate this battle skill, it's equivalent to having an immortal body. I've also heard about it. This invincible Vajra body can not only strengthen the physical body instantly, making the physical body comparable to a divine weapon, but also increase the power by several times. I'm afraid Qin Feiyong is out of luck this time.